here's something we hope you'll really like.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
We're traveling through a dimension both of sound and ideas. We're at a place where the mind can comprehend and devise a wireless transmitter, measure time and light. Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it in a place that's known as...
Planet Green Trees.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
All righty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Planet Green Trees. Episode number 465. We're calling it Zen and the Art of Life Maintenance. I'm your host, Michael Komorn. And we've got 2 hours packed with information, entertainment, and fun. A lot of different topics we're going to go over. I want to give you a couple of shout outs real quick. First, everyone that's following, listening on Facebook, please, we're encouraging you to ask questions and submit those questions. We'll be following the feed and aware of those that are listening and things you may want to ask some of the guests that we have on tonight. We've got a lot of great guests. But I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to go around the room real quick here and introduce everybody who's going to be participating. Got some exciting commentators that are going to be helping us tonight. Let's start with, in the bunker, we have Tommy and Justin. Tommy and Justin in the bunker. All right. And if moving down the room, we've got the founder of Parents for Compassion. Who? Dan?
Dan, Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan. Goddamn Dirty Dan.
Butters. So, different visual. Powers, I was trying to introduce him a little bit. He's somewhere in the melee here. Oh, there he is. Okay. You guys are not 6 feet apart. No one's wearing a mask.
There's
Please.
Dirty Dan's face on the internet.
You know, that's a
So-
rare sighting, Dirty Dan, on picture or video.
Dirty Dan, the security cameras are going to pick you up all over the place now.
Yep,
See
now
him.
you're
He's right there.
Now you're tagged.
I see him.
GPS tracker.
Anyways, so we're I'm trying to introduce Jim Powers. He's over in the corner over there. Jim, are you available to quick hello?
Yeah, momentarily I am. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Good to see everybody this fine evening. Happy out of quarantine day.
That's right.
Pick.
10 or
Yeah.
less. 10 or less now. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend. People can have small gatherings and appropriately safe, socially distance themselves, and one more step towards normalcy. So glad to see that.
And Jim, your final sentiment, as usual.
Fuck Bill Shooty.
That's it. That's it. Don't let us down.
Say it as a question. Say it as a
Fuck Bill Shooty.
Yes, just
Fuck Bill Shooty.
say it. Yeah.
Good.
Don't ask if it's not a question. It's a
Not a question.
statement.
It's a statement. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
You can frame it as a question. Should Jim,
No,
No.
nevertheless,
no, under no circumstance.
from the elevation station and our PGT roving reporter, she's got a microphone.
Yeah.
You see her coming at you with a PGT microphone in her hand. You may want to run the other way. She's
Yes.
welcome. Joslin.
Hey everybody, we got some good entertainment tonight. It's always fun to be here and fun to interact with everybody. And I'm driving right now, so I'm being ultra safe. And good to be here.
Well, first of all, you'd never know that because you look like you got a bunch of plants in your back seat. I don't know if
Heck
that's
yeah.
locked and closed. We can discuss that when we get to David Rudoy.
I consider that locked and enclosed because transportation is A-OK from my understanding now. David, what do you think?
Oh, hold on. so long as you're taking them to drop them off at the place that they are going to either be received or a place that you're going to put them. I know that's part of it. It's not to say they're not allowed, but all right. So Amanda, thank you. And we're excited because amongst the other things that the Elevation Station does is it entertains telemedicine certifications. And that is now one of the...
that is exciting.
So exciting.
That's progress.
It is. You know, it helps us reach out to a whole new population of folks who, as we know, there are patients that we have throughout the state that are mobility challenged. During right now, people don't sometimes feel comfortable coming out during this, the COVID-19. And it just it streamlines the process. It makes it so much more comfortable for people. And, it broadens. There's not very many people that have opportunity to get to the doctor, like, for instance, up north. So, options. We're only as strong as our options.
That's right. And that's one of the tidbits we're going to quickly talk about. And as we move around the room, we've got Alan Peisner's joining us, brother in arms, fellow barrister, trumpet player, and organized and anal retentive about keeping the library of all the medical marijuana and marijuana cases published and unpublished. Please welcome Alan Peisner.
Good evening, everybody. I'm especially excited to see you, Michael. I haven't seen you in a long time.
It's been a while, especially after we abused our Zoom privileges for so long.
Yes.
I want to be clear, although there's a slight resemblance. This is Alan Peisner. It's not Muammar Gaddafi, just so we know, okay? I see in the area here we have the founder and originator of many, many great songs. He toured the U.S. in the mid-'70s, in early '80s. I think he's going back on tour this summer. Fly Like an Eagle's in his repertoire library. Abracadabra. He's a retired police officer. I haven't talked.
The Joker.
Some people call him the Space Cowboy.
People call him Space Cowboy. He's been known to take the money and run on a motorcycle.
Right.
Dear friend, and you see him riding around on a 200-powered Kawasaki bicycle. Maybe him.
Tearing
Maybe not
it
that.
up.
Please welcome Steve Miller. Steve Miller.
Hello.
Some call in the gangster love, and I won't sing again.
It was all true. All of it. Thank you, Michael. And I think we're going to have a good show tonight.
Okay, I appreciate your confidence. I think I can.
Absolutely.
It's going to be off the hook, Steve.
Off the hook.
So, and as we move around here, we've got, of course, the one and only. I think last week I gave a really long introduction about all of his accomplishments and things. He's back here again. He's one of the hosts of the Jazz Cabbage Cafe on Tuesdays. He's well versed in advocacy and cannabis, and studied. Nobody knew this. Studied African American studies, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, take
College.
I need water so bad. Excuse me. Water.
sorry.
I sweat so much. There's no waters?
David is talking over you, Michael. I think he introduced me. Hey, listen, real quickly, let's just remember this is Memorial Day weekend, so let's give all the proper respect to all of those folks who deserve recognition on that. And also, let's keep in our thoughts and prayers all those folks that are victimized by the horrible flooding we're experiencing in Michigan right now. A lot of people disadvantaged, and our best wishes go out to those folks.
We did some on-scene stuff today, Rick. So hopefully we'll be able to put some images up and give you guys the info on scene.
Yeah, good. I mean, it's a terrible thing, but
it is.
We can't just let it go by without note. I'm glad you had an opportunity.
Was I called upon at some point?
David, you're
Did I
about
hear
to
it,
be
David?
called upon. Yes, we were trying to figure out if you were hydrated enough, because it appears that there wasn't any water over in your house. You weren't on mute. We were just I'm teasing you.
So The one and only Jamie Lowell is joining us. He's, of course, responsible for everything. He's got a weird camera angle. He likes
Very weird.
box. And for some reason,
enough room for my package.
Serious headphones on and whatnot. And he's not even bothering to get a background for his Zoom. Even though we're 9 weeks into using Zoom, he's still just going totally bare. Please
Black
welcome.
cinder block is my background.
All right. It's not
strong.
All right. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing okay. It's a really nice night. I'm hanging out outside.
That's good. Jeff,
Forward to the show.
Good week?
It's not a bad week. It's not a bad week at all.
As my friend Jeff Frazier likes to say, it's been a great week, but it's not over yet. Anyways, big shout out to Jeff Frazier. We should probably send him the Zoom number so we can call in. Maybe we should do that. I'm going to do that next break here. But towards the end of the Zooming thing, we've got David Radoy joining us. He's responsible for nothing. He never answers my calls and then calls me when he's ready and available. But he's responsible for this one thing tonight, that is getting the first guest we're going to have at 8:30. Karen McDonald, former Oakland County judge, who's running for the seat of Oakland County prosecutor. She'll be running as a Democrat against the incumbent Jessica Cooper. And David has been kind enough to join us tonight, share his expertise in law and commentary, and help ask questions and interview Karen McDonald and let her be heard for her positions on the for candidate as prosecutor. David, welcome and thanks for being here.
What's up, guys? Always good to be on the show. Happy to see all of your pretty faces. And I actually called Michael today, and he didn't call me back, so don't believe his lies.
Interesting fact about David Radoy. He claims to have done 70 straight days of yoga and has not lost 1 pound. Just an interesting fact. Just thought I'd throw it out there. There's nothing.
It is true.
He is a lot more limber
That
now.
is a lot of yoga. That is a very huge amount of yoga.
I could eat a yogurt a day for that long. I couldn't do any yoga at all, though.
What's the final
I've
goal?
done it
Like
since March 16th.
trying to
March
get
16th.
Will Ferrell was on Saturday Night Live a couple years ago.
Here's two things about
I don't
David.
think I
One,
caught that one.
when he read the Court of Appeals case that said you assume the risk when you go into liability when you go into yoga.
Don't get kicked in the face, right?
Not disagree with that. The other thing is that so many want to know after 70 days of yoga, can he do a headstand? The answer is no.
Yes, I can do a headstand.
All right, fine. You can do one later when we get the
I got headstands like, whoa.
Okay. All right, good. So let me introduce and tease the topics here as we move along. Got a lot of things to talk about, some on the list, some that are not on the list. Topic one, Detroit Custom officers seized almost 1.5 tons of pot in 2 months during the lockdown.
Boom.
We have a special segment, as I mentioned. Judge Karen McDonald is coming on and going to get interviewed in her position regarding her candidacy for Democratic prosecutor in Oakland County. And as we all know, and we're excited to talk about, there's probably a little less percentage now, but probably 60% of these shows of Planet Green Trees, which include the 465 on Spreaker and probably another 250 on Blog Talk, that are specifically devoted to railing on Jessica Cooper and the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, the Sheriff's Department, for the error of their ways.
As well as Bill Schuette, because fuck Bill Schuette.
There are videos and protests and things written in obsessive responses to the insanity that was taking place, to Oakland County's response to medical marijuana. They, of course, are responsible for, many of the cases that were decided were brought or facilitated by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. I think there's a famous quote from Supreme Court Justice Robert Young when the prosecutor's office was the appellant in a Supreme Court case, and said something to the effect to the Oakland County lawyer for the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office was, you guys have freaking flyer miles on these issues, don't you? You guys have frequent flyer miles on these issues, don't you? In other words, saying you guys are too much. Slow it down, take it easy. All right. That's the guest. She's coming out at 8:30, I understand. And about 15 minutes or so. There's a fascinating article in the world of what are courts going to do in the era of no social gathering of more than 10 people. There's a lot of discussions taking place regarding Zoom jury trials, and there's an interesting story out of all places, Texas. Again, a shout out to my dear friend Jeff Frazier. Only in Texas would things like this happen. But they attempted to do a jury trial and via Zoom in Texas, and all kinds of weird stuff happened. And then the next segment is going to be Ryan Basore, founder of Redemption, also a prior guest on the show. Really fascinating and heroic story that Ryan went through, and we're going to wait till we discuss it, but we're excited to have Ryan on the show. He's a great activist, great person, and we're glad to see that he has been able to access the industry, and we're going to hear about that. Also, as I mentioned, the medical consultations, certifications have been deemed lawful via telemedicine. And of course, we could probably talk about this a little bit. The judge, Cynthia Stevens, I believe it was, in the Court of Claims, ruled in favor of Governor Whitmer's executive order rejecting the Republican-led lawsuit challenging the emergency powers.
Saying that their case was meritless.
Stating that their cases, maybe we'll have an analysis of that done by Jamie Lowell. No, so so there you go. That's the tease of the topics. Of course, I want to remind everybody that the opinions and comments expressed on this show, guest commentators, may or may not represent the thoughts of Komorn Law's law firm or its associates. Much of the conversation during the broadcast is an attempt to bring humor, levity, comedy to scenarios that may not be. Although some of the conversations and guests may state facts, academic impediments, and scientific theorems, one should consult with a lawyer before taking action, and nothing should be considered herein as legal advice. So with that said, let's discuss a couple things there. Right out of the gate, Jamie, I know this is interesting because while this at times has been a cannabis reform show, we've dared to hop into some other topics and conversations, one of which has been the press of the pandemic and the governor's orders and those violators of the governor's orders and how it's been reacted to. But what we know today is that there's been a attack or a lawsuit challenging the lawfulness of the executive order, which was rejected today in court by Judge Cynthia Stevens. And there may be an appeal. Of course, the action starts in the Court of Claims, and then there'll be an appeal to the Court of Appeals as it goes. I myself have been down this path before with other litigation where we suing the state and end up in the Court of Claims, and they want nothing to do with it. And basing on things on standing or whatnot. But today, let's get into a little bit. It's likely to be appealed by the Republicans. And of course, this lawsuit stemmed over the Emergency Manager Act and the determination that they're vindicated in the assertion that the governor acted unlawfully. This is the press release. The governor feels vindicated in an attempt to extend the state's emergency disaster under the Emergency Managers Act without legislative approval. And they're confident that the appeal will be affirmed in the Court of Appeals.
Well, of course it will in the Court of Appeals. I would expect that. I mean, the Court of Appeals has already had two judges that are on the Court of Claims that have ruled against the Republicans on this issue.
How many bites at the apple do they get? I mean, well, they've been wrong both times.
They should just, I mean, honestly, it should just get fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. And, wherever you stand on the issue, at that point, it doesn't matter, right? It's just settled once and for all, and we can all move on with our lives. But dragging it out like this isn't helpful to anybody and really sets people up to fail at the end of the day, because there's no consistency as to what's going on, especially if the courts start flipping and flopping back and forth.
Greg, it keeps their orders in place, at least for right now.
Oh, for sure. Like they need to stay in place until the Supreme Court rules one way or the other. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. But I also know that Judge Stewart in Shiawassee County ruled in favor of Carl Manke again today. So I expect that, in order to put this to bed once and for all, this issue just has to end up at the Supreme Court so everyone understands where the judiciary truly stands on this issue.
Let's understand what happened today with the Carl Mankey case. They didn't say Mankey was right to stay open. What they said was his staying open didn't constitute a public health emergency, which would have required him to be shut down immediately. They put the issue of whether or not he's behaving criminally to a later court date. So he wasn't exonerated. They just decided that he wasn't a threat to public safety.
Right. That and the temporary restraining order. And I mean, we'll see what happens with the criminal complaint. That'll be in a different court in front of a different judge.
Hold on. It's an interesting dynamic because the law that he was ticketed, the criminal issue, is based upon the premise that there's he's doing something wrong, right? We're almost punishing him like a marijuana predictor. What's the public? If it's not a public health concern and no one's being harmed by it, which is what the court found, then what criminal charges would exist? One might say. I'm just saying, and for purposes of the law in conceptualizing this, and I'm not offering an opinion one way or the other. I'm just saying that if there are criminal charges, and listen, Rick, I acknowledge that there's a lot of politics locally there. We had a circuit court deny the emergency, and then they set it for a hearing. Emergency injunction set it for a hearing date. Nothing's going to change. We didn't anticipate that to change. And the fact that he's making this findings that there's no public health is interesting because I want to draw the comparison of that case with the findings of Cynthia Stevens. What's interesting in this case is that neither party in the case denied the emergence of the widespread impact of COVID on the citizenry of the state. Neither do they ask this court to address the policy surrounding the scope and extent of the content of approximately 90 orders issued by the governor since the initial declaration. The House of Representatives, in their initial capacity, challenged the validity of the order, which were issued on April 30th, 2020. They've asked this court to declare those orders and all the rest upon them invalid without authority as written. So there's nothing specific that the plaintiffs here, the Republican legislators cite, and there's nothing specific within the orders. What they do is they cite two statutes, otherwise known as the Emergency Managers Act and the Emergency Powers of the Governor. And in addition, they cite the Constitution 1963, Article 1, Section 5, which generally vests the executive power of the state of the governor. So the point I'm trying to make is when the court ruled here, it didn't get into the question of whether or not there's a health concern. They didn't debate the data. They didn't debate the fact that there's a national pandemic. Whereas in the Barber case, I think the pleadings didn't make factual assertions of how public health was in jeopardy. That was the point the lawyer was making, is it was a poorly pled case. There wasn't any actual it may have been just in the pleadings. They may have put things in there. They said there's an order, he can't do it, therefore. And that was one of the reasons why they didn't prevail, probably in both of the situations. Here, it's different because there's almost like a stipulation that there is a pandemic, that there are people that are concerned that the governor's orders were for the purposes of protecting the citizens originally. However, they're saying that the orders as written are invalid because they are unconstitutional or they are an overreach and what the court finds specifically is the issues of compliance with the verification is abandoned. So the parties abandoned that particular argument. The House of Representatives do have standing and the Senate do have standing to pursue the case. So they weren't bounced because of standing. The executive order referred to in the case is a valid exercise of authority under the EPGA, and plaintiffs have not established any reason to invalidate any executive orders resting on the emergency order of 2020-67. So what they're saying is they didn't specify anything. They find that the law is written as constitutionally valid and that she did not exceed her authority.
Right. So then when people disagree with that, I mean, they've exhausted their legal opportunities. Now they have to go to, as Jim said, the Supreme Court. She's won. Whitmer's at least 2-0, possibly 3-0. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's
factual. That's factual.
Not resolved. It's certainly not the highest court. If they're going to appeal it, it's just like some of the marijuana cases, Rick, along the way. How many times the Court of Appeals gives a terrible case and people were devastated with, show after show complaining, and then the Supreme Court did the right thing.
And then the time in between the Circuit Court and the Supreme Court, Circuit Court's decision was law until the Supreme Court overturned it. So right now we're in a position where Whitmer's ruling is just and is lawful and is the law of the land.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that the path here is not over yet. It's not a resolved issue one way or the other. It is the current state of the law. But and that was Jim's point. The next stage here, as it goes to the Court of Appeals, they should just hop over.
And that's a 4-3 Republican over Democrat in the Michigan Senate. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's a fair assessment, wouldn't you think? That's slightly more Republican in the Michigan Supreme Court. Alan Peisner's nodding his head. He would know. The chance of having a different result coming out of that court, pretty good.
I'd like to believe that the Supreme Court, I don't know, like our U.S. Supreme Court is politically aligned, but they do make decisions that are based on the law. And unlike other political branches, I haven't lost all faith in the court system. And I do think that there's some basis by which decisions are made and logic and reasoning that's used. So I not to disrupt the case or say one way or the other, but there's a protocol and a procedure, and who knows what'll happen, Rick? The Michigan Supreme Court have been so great on a lot of the marijuana issues, and then this last go around, they came out of nowhere with a really terrible opinion that nobody, maybe it was anticipated, but it was contrary to what should have been and what was predicted. And we're yet to see the impact of that. All right, so what time? 8:27. I think we dealt with our coronavirus. Should we take a break, I think? And then maybe ready for our special guest, Karen McDonald, is going to be zooming in a second and talking about reforming some of the criminal justice ways in Oakland County and what she's going to do as prosecutor. Are we good on a break, gentlemen? All right, we'll take a break. You're listening to Planet Green Trees, episode 465, and we're going to be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Now's the time to pull it out.
Okay, so our next speaker is Antoinette Sarfo. Everybody knows her as Q, of course. Many of us welcomed her into our homes for many years. She was the Channel 2 Fox News newscaster in the morning. I watched her for years. I felt like she was a friend before I even knew her. Following her MS diagnosis, she's led a very public campaign advocating for the use of medical marijuana in the treatment of MS. And she's a tireless leader, and she's one of the people that we can really thank for the passage of Prop 1. So here we go, my friend Q. Unmute your mic, Q.
Okay, here we go. Is that better? Take 2? All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody. Happy Digital Hash Bash, everybody, and thank you for joining the party from home. Today, while we celebrate legalization and take a puff of appreciation for the men and women who spent the last 50 years getting us to this moment, we must recognize that their work and our work is far from finished. A few months ago, I had a multiple sclerosis relapse and I passed out and possibly had a seizure. I want to thank the Farmington Hills Fire Department and the EMS workers who helped me that day. My doctor later prescribed me a medication, one that costs $1,200 a month, and that is with insurance. So guess what? That prescription is still at the pharmacy. But what my doctor didn't tell me is that some patients who are having issues such as mine were seeing results with cannabis, which would cost me about $100 a month if I went with an option like this, which is full extract cannabis oil. He couldn't tell me that even if that was too expensive, I could just grow it myself like this. This is Michigan grown hemp, and I can make the extract myself. My doctor can't give me and patients like me all of their options. Cannabis education is still being censored in the medical community. We must end this, and we really have to put the medical back in medical marijuana. I treat my mother's diabetes and arthritis with cannabis, and it is working. Yet she and so many patients like her, elderly patients, are terrified to tell their doctors. How is this healthcare? It's not. And we can't stop with cannabis. Legalization actually starts with cannabis. This magic mushroom also grows naturally. Cultures have used them safely for centuries. Researchers have been studying them for conditions like depression, Alzheimer's disease, and addiction for decades. But they remain illegal. Why? It is time for us to decriminalize nature. DNA2.org is working on that, so please, please consider joining and supporting their efforts. And finally, let's not forget that people are still in jail and in prison for nonviolent marijuana offenses, and those who are released live in the shadow of records that should have been expunged by now. Michigan lost a champion in the expungement fight with the death of Representative Isaac Robinson last month from coronavirus. We have to fill the void that he left and finally get expungement law passed in Michigan and across the country. So hey, let's celebrate today and let's get back at it tomorrow. You can always find me on social media at Channel Q, and I'm really looking forward to letting you guys know about something I'm unveiling on 420. So I hope to see you then, and until then, let me grab my puff. Puff, puff, don't pass. Stay safe by staying at home, and I'll see you soon. Back to you guys, the Hash Bash crew, and thank you so much for doing this. This is fun, and the parking is so much better.
Oh, that's so awesome, Q. Thank you.
I wish there was thunderous applause. You deserve it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Rick, why don't you tee up our next speaker?
Next year, this will be 10 times as big. Post your photos. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Alrighty, we are back. Thanks for staying with us. We're listening to Planet Green Trees, episode number 465. We're very excited now to have with us our first guest tonight. She is a lawyer who has recently served as an Oakland County Circuit Court judge. She was elected in November of 2020, and she served until April of 2019. She is previously or currently private practicing law and has worked at Jaffe, Raithauer, and Weiss. She's a former Oakland County prosecutor, assistant prosecutor, and is currently running for the Oakland County prosecutor, the elected official, and as a Democrat, and is going to be running against the incumbent Jessica Cooper. There'll be a vote on this, and whoever prevails will most likely become the county prosecutor. And we're very happy to have with us tonight Karen McDonald. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. I know we just got started, but I can predict that this is probably going to be like the absolute most fun event I've done in my campaign so far, especially since COVID started. Very refreshing. I spend most of my day on Zoom calls, but not like this. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure, and we're glad to have you, and I hope not to disappoint as far as entertainment goes. And I asked you before, obviously people may not be thinking about this, but even though everyone's locked at home, there's an election going on. I mean, there's an election process going on, and it is not normal like everything else is not normal. You mentioned you've been Zooming a lot, and people should think about like how difficult it must be to get out and talk to people and be able to campaign and get your name out there. What has that been like for you as a candidate? Obviously, you've run before as an Oakland County Circuit Court judge and won. So you've been through the election process. How does this compare to that other process back in 2011?
Well, when I ran for judge in 2010, there were 5 of us in the primary, and then and 2 of us in the general. And this is so much different. And actually, I can tell you that for me, it's just, I really like doing this a lot more than I did running for judge, because when you're running for judge, you're nonpartisan. So you're going to Republican events, Democrat events, and you can't really say how you feel about anything. You can't say what you are. And it's hard to get a platform when you run for judge. You're nonpartisan. And so now, I had to resign from the bench a year ago, because when you go from running, being a judge, which is nonpartisan, to run for a partisan seat, like I am as a Democrat, I had to take an entire year off before the filing deadline. So I left a job that I probably could have had for the rest of my career, because I really feel so strongly about the prosecutor. And I'm probably, this group is probably has a higher IQ about why the prosecutor really matters in our communities and in our county. But in my mind, it's the most critical position in the county. But in terms of, and I'll get to that in a minute, but in terms of campaigning, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I probably don't have any bigger of adjustment than anybody else. It is a whole new world. I never imagined in a million years that we would be here. There's a lot to adjust to. I'm grateful I raised a lot of money before this started, because I have a hard time asking people for money now, because everybody's insecure about money. And I would say the thing that, is the worst about being a political candidate is I'm not exaggerating, and David knows this, and you know this too, Michael, because you've spent some time with me on the phone. All I do all day long is ask people for money or time, all I do is ask people for things. That's it. And, you have to really be able to set aside you're humiliated a lot of times, you have to, and nobody likes asking people for money. But the thing that kind of sucks about our political system right now is it takes money. I mean, I have a very passionate agenda and platform, which I'm going to talk about, but I can't get it out there without dollars. And, I have my own political mountains to climb about what I think is important, but boy, this system, it's kind of messed up. It's really, you have to ask people for money, and you have to ask it, if you're principled, like I am, in a way that I want your support. I want to hear what you have to say, but it's not like you can promise them anything. I mean, I'm running for prosecutor. I can't, and David's heard me say this, Michael's heard me say this, like, I want your support as much as possible, but I'm not going to tell you I'll do everything you want me to do, because I can't. So it's just, it's difficult. And then when you're in a situation where everybody, people have lost their jobs. And that's hard. So luckily though, there's huge grassroots support for criminal justice reform. And that is across it crosses income barriers and race barriers and political parties. Everybody wants criminal justice reform.
And you know, that is I'd like to believe that's a fair statement. Being a lawyer myself for 26, 27 years, you can see some of the destruction that it causes and the need for it. Let me ask a couple things about some of these topics that I wanted to discuss. The Oakland County is the second largest county in Michigan. It is the richest county in Michigan. I don't know how they evaluate that. The biggest county prosecutor budget in Michigan, ranked 8th nationally for incarceration, probation, and parole. Those statistics, I think, are from your website, pointing out the need for why there's a need for criminal justice reform. But as I mentioned before we got you in the Zoom on the break, this show, the people that are involved here, we've been gathering on Thursdays for many, many years and spent a lot of time talking about Oakland County's prosecutor, Jessica Cooper, and her position on medical marijuana. We're just reminiscing, you know, terrible times really of how, you know, there was a lot of unknowns of how the medical marijuana program was going to roll out. And those questions were answered rather abruptly and violently by the approach taken by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. Oakland County was the first place to get raided, where the dispensary doors were kicked in. There wasn't a civilized cease and desist that's put on the door. Let's come to court and figure out what the law is or whatever. It was felonizing, forfeiting, guns to the head, dogs being shot. A lot of bad press created, propaganda. The marijuana plants are being guarded by alligators. Not true. Just crazy, wild stuff. And David and myself and a lot of other lawyers in the area could attest to how terrible it was, how awful. And then from there, all these cases, bad luck came out of Oakland County. I could name 12, changed by the Supreme Court in favor of medical marijuana patients and caregivers. And I joked there was one time when Robert Young of the Michigan Supreme Court commented to one of the appellate lawyers, "You guys have frequent flyer miles on these marijuana issues. Like, enough. Stop making an issue that's supposed to protect." So, I mean, I have clients that have died since then. They were sick. They were tortured. They couldn't take their cannabis during the time. So there's a long, long history, which is why it's interesting to me, and I think many of the people that are listening, as to what your position is going to be about cannabis moving forward. Now, things have changed a lot. We have, of course, recreational law in effect, but there's still some unknowns, and we're kind of back to that same position as to we have this new law. How is it going to be interpreted, implemented, and what is the leading law enforcement officer in the county's position on that? So that's where I kind of want to frame this a little bit. And I don't want this to be a quiz on what you read or prepared, but the recreational laws come into effect, and there's a lot of different interpretations. I know that Oakland County, for example, does not follow or get trained by PAM, right? PAM is like the state organization that gives a lot of training and policy advice to the prosecutors across. Oakland County does their own thing, which sometimes is good and sometimes I think is bad. But do you think as a prosecutor you're going to continue to participate, independently, or do you think you'd be more involved with PAM and the policy decisions that they make?
Well, okay, there's a lot here. With regard to PAM, think about the influence that the cannabis lawyers have been able to make, because you all got together. And it doesn't mean you agree on everything, but you have a similar goal and similar beliefs. So that's what PAM is. It's the elected prosecutors across the state, and they collaborate for training purposes. They also weigh in on legislation. They're looked at by local legislators, the governor, the attorney general. It's just, so it's not that Oakland County doesn't do it. It's Jessica Cooper doesn't do it. I mean, every prosecutor before her attended those meetings, joined that association, and the county reaped a lot of benefit from it. Why wouldn't we want to team up and find out how Wayne County's doing it? Why wouldn't I want to know how Kim Worthy's handling her marijuana cases, or Carol Seaman from Ingham County? I mean, I may not agree with it, but why wouldn't I want to know? And I can tell you, I know exactly why the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office has made decisions about marijuana. And here's what it is. Jessica Cooper doesn't like marijuana. And she is an elected official who puts her own personal agenda over the public interest. She will every time. This is only one example. I have 20 more that are very serious, critical issues. Treatment courts, cash bail, juvenile lifers without parole, not using the canine advocacy program. It's her personal agenda and feeling versus what's best for our community. And that's why, and by the way, that is never going to change. She is always going to find, as long as she's in office, which hopefully ends January 1, 2021, she will always find a way to punish and criminalize anybody who possesses marijuana, uses marijuana, distributes marijuana. That is the mindset, and that is not going to change. That is how she feels, regardless of the law. And, that's wrong. I mean, how do I feel about it? This is how I feel about it. I left a job that most lawyers would agree, it's a pretty good job, because I believe we need to reduce mass incarceration in this country. We incarcerate more people in this country than any other country in the entire world. Marijuana is really, that's the easy one for me, okay? I don't think people should be criminalized because of marijuana use, marijuana distribution. I think it should be regulated, but the voters have spoken. I happen to agree with the voters. I voted for it. I agree with it. We have enough problems. And, I just want to throw a couple things. I was on the family court. So, there were discussions on our bench. There were discussions among Child Protective Services when we removed children from homes. There's such an ingrained bias in the criminal justice system against marijuana. And I have said from the bench, hold on. I understand you want people to be substance free, but we're talking about marijuana. It's really being smart on crime versus being tough on crime. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, we can't do that by continually charging people or just making life more difficult for people who are doing, which is what the voters said should be legal. So that's how I feel about it.
I too could give an explanation as to why I think, the marijuana, it's running rampant throughout the state up until the legalization. It made up, 40% of pretty much every criminal docket across the state. The lab was spending 40%, state lab was spending 40% of its budget to test marijuana. Why weren't the rape kits getting to because of that? So there's, but you see the financial reward or the finances that are used from prosecuting, criminalizing marijuana, and it's a significant amount. A lot of people are eating because of it. It's a big part of the system. So it's interesting to see how that funding, so to speak, that it creates revenue for the courts, for the police, for the local communities and whatnot, how that's going to be dealt with. And I want to, and you discussed this concept of criminal justice reform, and there's a couple of reports produced by the state of Michigan that are consistent with that theme and encourage it to take place. The first one is the Michigan Joint Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration. I think this was requested by the governor, who wanted to find out why is there such a jail problem in Michigan. The other one, of course, is this Michigan Trial Court Funding Commission on the courts and how they are totally reliant upon litigants that come before them and the money in their pocket in order to keep the lights on, and how this creates a bias, period. It's hard to be fair when you need their money to pay the light bills or the budget or the clerks in the office. But the point I guess I'm getting at here is there's a number of different recommendations and explanations of how we get there. The trial commission, the Michigan Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration, suggests we have too many laws, that there's not enough warnings that are given, that the concept of that first interaction with citizen law enforcement is arrest or convict. And of course, some of that is outside of the prosecutorial discretion. But for most misdemeanors other than tickets and felonies, they have to come to the prosecutor's office. They put the warrant down and request that it be signed. So there's a lot of discretion on that side. What other general things do you see that a prosecutor can do beyond marijuana? I got a bunch of questions about marijuana, but in the other areas that can reduce this problem of mass incarceration and well, let's start with that one. What is one?
Okay.
Marijuana.
Yeah. So what's critical is problem-solving courts that address the underlying reason why somebody's coming into the criminal justice system. So many of the people that were in front of me as a judge, and so many people even in, my personal, private, public, and professional life. I mean, everybody's brushed with the stroke of some sort of mental health, substance abuse issue in their world, and not addressing it and just incarcerating or jailing someone. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And we're not making ourselves safer. So problem solving courts, which is a key component of the task force you mentioned, is a way of bringing this team of people together, the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, treatment people, and saying, okay, Michael, you've been charged with, assault and battery or aggravated assault, or maybe something more severe. And we know you have a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue, or maybe you're a vet and you have some PTSD or whatever it is. We're actually going to try to make whatever your issue is, we're going to address it. And if you follow these steps of this plan and treatment that this court really wants you to, and we're going to review it and we're going to hold you accountable, then at the end, the prosecutor is going to agree to dismiss or amend your charge. So in 2008, when Jessica Cooper took office, we had a drug treatment court, and she decided she wasn't going to participate in it, and she wasn't going to allow her assistant prosecutors to sit on any of the treatment courts. So they had to do an emergency rewrite in the legislature, and so that Oakland County could even have a treatment court. So they did that. We do have a treatment court, but here's the difference. At the end of it, we don't have a prosecutor who will say, okay, Michael, you did everything you're supposed to do, and you received your treatment, and we're satisfied that you're not going to be back here. Your charge is dismissed. Your charge is amended. She won't participate. So the only thing we can do at the end is, as a judge, we can say, okay, well, I won't send you to jail, or I can affect sentencing. But that's just not enough. And, we have a veterans court. She told the chief judge at the time, I'm not a social worker. I'm not going to be involved. And you know what? This appalls most people. But what you should also know is that we're the only county in the whole state that doesn't have a prosecutor who will participate in treatment court. She says it's not her job. It's the judiciary's job. Cash bail. Over half the people in the Oakland County Jail are there right now. They have not been convicted of one crime. They've been charged with a crime, and they can't post a cash bail. And most of those offenses are non-violent offenses. There's a lot of data in the country and in the state that shows posting a cash bail actually doesn't increase the likelihood of you reappearing for your court date. And these people, sometimes there are people who can't really post, a $200 cash bail. So they sit in jail. And then most of you are lawyers, so and then their pretrial comes up after they, maybe they've left their kids unsupervised. So maybe there's a neglect petition filed. They've lost housing. They're probably going to lose their job. And the judge says, you want to plead or you want to go to trial? Well, you can't post your cash bail. So if you go to trial, that's not going to be for another 60 days. So you're going to go back to jail. So what are you going to do? Probably going to plead guilty. That's what you're going to do. And so the system's kind of rigged, and look, I'm running to be prosecutor. I want us to be safe. I'm a mom. I have 5 kids. We have a blended family ranging in age from 18 to 26. There's literally not one issue you could have raising a teenager that we have not dealt with. But jailing and incarcerating people for nonviolent offense, particularly drug offenses, makes no sense. We need to find a better way. And it's not going to happen until you get a prosecutor, a county prosecutor or DA that embraces it and cares about it and will implement it. People don't realize how powerful the prosecutor is. I don't want to run for county exec because actually I don't think that person has as much influence to move the needle on people's daily lives as the prosecutor. The prosecutor decides who's going to be charged with a crime. And prosecutor is the one who should care whether we're disproportionately charging people of color and poor people, which, spoiler alert, we are. The mass incarceration that's going on in this country affects two groups of people of color and poor people. So when Donald Trump was elected, for me, that changed things. I decided I didn't want to be in a nonpartisan elected role anymore. I wanted to be able to say what I think. And, if when I look around our community, I think the prosecutor is the most important official in our county. I think, the prosecutor charges juvenile petitions and neglect and abuse petitions. And those are a way that we know right away when a child is very young, something's not right here. We need to help fix this so they don't end up in jail as an adult. There's so much the prosecutor can do. And that's why I did what I did.
And I mean, David and I know what you mean by the prosecutors have a lot of power and authority. There's a trend in American jurisprudence that they have, gotten way away from their intention in using that power and authority and even become bullies at times. I mean, the example that I use is that, the overcharge or the multiple charge or the more serious charges that may not get a conviction, there may be a little bit there that they could, speculate about, but that's hanging over the defendant's head.
It's just a coercive plea. It's just a coercive plea.
Felony firearms, an example, right? The felony firearm, like a discussion of a marijuana case of a caregiver that they've said was out of compliance. They've lost their immunity, now they're charged with a felony, and they happen to own a CPL that's locked away. That's how going to subject them to 2 years mandatory is bizarre and an abuse. It causes people to resolve their cases because there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The judge has to give them 2 years, even if.
Yeah, and it's funny. My husband's a lawyer, but not a criminal lawyer, not a litigator. He's a corporate lawyer, and he's fairly engaged in these issues because I am, as are my children. But he just asked me last night about felony firearm, and I was explaining why that was really used as a way just to coerce a plea, and it gives people no choices. And at first, it sounds bad. He's like, well, wait, somebody it's a felony and they have a weapon? Like, that's a big deal. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not like somebody used the weapon. It's just they possess the weapon, which might have nothing to do with the underlying charge. It's not fair. It's not fair. And
constructively, right? That's it's not an actual possession. It's, like someone could be away. They could have a gun in their house. And marijuana grow that the police have broken into, and that will suffice. You're right. It's an abuse. It
is. And, I don't know. I do want to just put a little plug in here for those of you who are really interested in criminal justice reform. There's a book called Charged, and I highly recommend you read it. It was on the bestseller list, but it's a nonfiction book about our criminal justice system, but it follows two people charged with crimes and getting into the system and what happens. And it's really a good read, even for people who aren't lawyers, and points out how influential a prosecutor or district attorney really is.
All right, so let's talk about the reason I was asking about Pam before was because, there's one instance I remember. Pam was, there was a time when the legislature enacted the transport of marijuana law. Like the MMA said, you can possess X amount, and it doesn't have what condition is not how you're carrying it in your car. And the legislature, without amending the MMA, created another law. Oakland County did not enforce that, oddly. Under certain, it was a clear interpretation, later overturned as a invalid. But and Pam has been proffering an interpretation of the MRTMA or the recreational law as follows: if you are outside of the limitations of an adult over the age of 21, and there is not a specified penalty articulated within that law, section 14 and 15 and 4 and 5, I think are the ones that cover it, then you default back to the public health code. So if, for example, there is not a specifically articulated penalty associated with the behavior, like smoking in public. It says you can't smoke in public, right? So it doesn't say if you smoke in public, it's a fine or a it doesn't say anything. So the interpretation of this by Pam has been, well, since there's no penalty, it doesn't articulate it, you default back to the public health code, which is unfortunately the way they interpreted the MMA. Like it's immunity, and if it doesn't tell you what's wrong when you're outside of immunity, you default back to, you're back. What do you mean? I had a card. Nope, you're drug dealer. It was that kind of flip flop. So that is one particular area. Like of course, someone would have to bring a ticket or a complaint, and the prosecutor's office would sign it. But to give people a little bit of notice, those areas, for example, there's the possessing marijuana. Smoking in public. There is there's a number of different issues that come up regarding people under the age of 21, right? The laws for adults over the age of 21, and these protections, you're not prohibited, it's legal. But under 21, game on. All the same laws would apply, would be an argument and interpretation. I've heard other prosecutors. What is your thoughts on that? Just from the outset. I mean, if it's not articulated within the statute as a penalty, how should we be interpreting that for that behavior?
Well, without really getting into the weeds in a technical basis, I guess the way I would interpret it is I will always opt towards the most reasonable position. And when I say reasonable, I mean avoiding criminalizing somebody who's using marijuana. Again, I think it should be regulated, but I don't think we really need to shift from this idea that as a prosecutor, your role is to seek the absolute highest charge you possibly can, to choose the charge that carries the most punishment behind it, and whether it makes sense or not. So I don't know technically how would I interpret that, but what I do know is we're going to be reasonable about it, and we don't want people to have felonies. We don't want. I'm going to avoid charging people who I do not believe are engaged in criminal behavior, whether or not the law allows me to do that or not. Because I believe that's what being smart on crime is all about. And why to be wasting all of this time and money and effort within the prosecutor's office, within the judicial system, the criminal justice system, on activities that shouldn't be criminal, So I guess that's the way I would answer that. Like, I don't want more people to be convicted of felonies. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. Again, want to keep our streets safe, want to protect the public, but this is not about protecting the public. How is interpreting the law in a way that would allow you to charge somebody with a serious felony or even a high misdemeanor? How is that protecting the law, the people of our community? If it's a marijuana charge, how's that protecting somebody?
Do you think that those cases that were charged that may still be going on? I have a couple of, do you think that the recreational law applies backwards, retroactively to marijuana cases that have not been disposed of yet?
Yes. And I also don't think, I think people who have marijuana convictions on their record, that those should be expunged. I mean, it's just fair. I mean, why wouldn't somebody who has a possession of marijuana case and a conviction on their record that prevents them from doing something they really want to do, usually a job, by the way, why wouldn't we allow that conviction to be expunged? Again, it just makes sense to me. It just makes sense.
And are you saying that from a policy or interpretation of the law that it does have a retroactive effect on not to undo a conviction? I mean, I understand that's
if you're asking me of cases that are currently going on, but they were charged before the law was in effect, I would immediately apply the new law. Like, I don't care. I mean, that's how powerful your prosecutor is. They can at any moment decide to dismiss that charge. And why wouldn't you, if just because the day on the calendar we said it was illegal, but now we don't, and you're still going to spend efforts and resources and time and money prosecuting that? Does that make sense to you? I don't think that makes sense.
I agree.
I'd rather focus my attention on trying to, keep child sexual assault. I mean, domestic violence or, armed robbery. I mean, there are things that we really should be spending some time on. Treatment courts, so that we don't have this repeat offender constantly. mean, there's so many more things that are just more important.
People that are growing marijuana as an adult recreation, allowed to have 12 plants, got to be in a closed lock facility. Do you think that they should have to relinquish their Second Amendment right to protect their home and house and not have a gun in the house? Do you think that, these are questions as a lawyer I get asked all the time. I'm a patient or caregiver. Now it's legal to have to get rid of my gun. Is this an issue that you see?
Well, I mean, do they have that? I mean, we don't. It's just. Do we have a law that prevents people from having alcohol in their home? As a judge, I saw so many cases where people legally possessed a weapon, but because of alcohol, used it in a way that victimized people.
Sure.
But I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. Look, we allow people to legally own guns. That is not something I have ever chosen to do. Though I grew up in a household where my dad was and still is a big hunter, so there were guns in our home. But if you're following the law, I don't see how it relates. So again, I go back to what makes sense. Just because the charge is available for you to make does not mean it's the right thing to do. Because once you charge somebody with several offenses, you're really setting them down a path that you can't unwind. And by the way, they don't want to unwind because they won't even dismiss or amend the charge. So, I don't.
David's itching to get on. I'm gonna turn his mute button up. I just want to make a couple of comments because he's going to try to take over. But you mentioned a couple of things that I thought were really important. I want to say this: that Jessica Cooper has disappointed every lawyer from my view that she got to support her when she got elected. She did nothing to have any empathy or sense of compassion to the people that she brought into the criminal justice and all the programs, as you mentioned, that allow for first-time offender things. Not happening. You got to get double secret permission from some chain of custody that you can't even walk up. Very, very difficult. Most lawyers of first offense, they know they're probably going to get it impaired when they walk into court. Not in Oakland County. You got to beg and grovel for that, if that's even a thing. And that's just non-marijuana cases. And it's quite distressing that not only did she end those programs, but she misled a lot of people into thinking that she was going to champion those things. And I would also agree with you that one of the things missing, and I see it and hear it all the time, that the people that are brought into the system are damaged. Like, I don't think anyone grows up and says, I want to be a criminal. It's a matter of circumstance, economics, education, culture, lifestyle, all the things that they're born into. And they may not have the skills to survive in normal circumstance they find themselves. Now, I'm not saying I'm defending the criminal activity, but I'm saying the way you deal with it for the next round and how you get the improvement, break out of the cycle. Nothing in the court system provides that path. Very little, if any. And in the way we're dealing not yet. And the way we're dealing with a lot of these social issues, like, for example, I saw the sheriffs, their best argument why we shouldn't legalize marijuana was they do 5 home calls per day for mental health issues, and marijuana legalization is going to create more of those. My question was, why are police officers doing mental health calls at somebody's house? We are totally putting the money in the wrong spot. These are not public safety.
Exactly. And officers want tools. They want tools because they are doing those calls. I don't know what it has to do with marijuana, to be honest. In fact, I might even argue that
it doesn't make. I know it's the logic. Listen, here's how it
makes no sense.
The prohibition of marijuana is based on a lie. So everything after that is going to be weird and not able to be explained, and that would be one of those. Okay. All right. Let's let David on. David wants to try to pin you down, I think, on your interpretation. Let's see what he's got to say. David, go ahead. I'm unmuting you. You got to behave, though. Okay.
I will behave, Michael. Thank you. One thing I want to get it out there, guys, regarding this candidate for prosecutor. She was talking about how important this is. The county prosecutor literally essentially sets the standard for what the law is within that county for the term that she's present. And Oakland County has historically kind of made law, or other counties have followed after us. This is a really important race, not just for people in Oakland County, but around the state. The medical marijuana decisions that came out of Oakland County felonized people across the state. They were Court of Appeals decisions that turned people who were trying to follow the law into felons for the whole year. And after my long campaign with MI Legalize and finally winning there, and kind of throughout the years of politics, I kind of said I'm never going to support another candidate. You know, it doesn't really do much for me. It doesn't, it's a big drain on your money, and then the candidates get in office and do what they want. And this is an exception for me that I'm full on board. I think you guys can hear what Karen was talking about this whole time. But she is going to enact real change that I think is going to make effects across the state. So I think it's really important that everybody understands how important this election is. Jessica Cooper has been somebody that has really created holes in this medical marijuana law that have felonized people that were trying to follow the rules, and having somebody different. And that those changes that she's done have been statewide from the Court of Appeals. And Michael, that case you were talking about earlier was my case when they called Oakland County frequent flyers. But it really is, it's crazy the effect that Jessica Cooper has had negatively towards the marijuana legalization and that movement across the state. Karen, somebody I truly believe in. I just want to throw out there that June 15th, guys, we're going to have a Zoom fundraiser, June 15th at 5 o'clock. And I'm going to be putting more content out about that. I hope Michael will kind of let everybody know as the plans develop on that. Karen, one thing that I wanted you to be able to talk about and ask you about a little bit, you've already kind of stated, you know, your views on trying to avoid felonies for marijuana related activities, you know. But what are you going to do differently about engaging the community into setting policies as we develop new laws that are going to continue? You know, this marijuana law that we're dealing with right now, the MRTMA, I assume is going to continue to develop. And so what changes are you going to make as far as involving the public in your decision making?
So part of, you know, there's really great models for progressive prosecutors across the country. So I can't take credit for this, but innately it just sort of comports with how I view the world. I'm going to create advisory committees that I meet with regularly. This group would be a group of defense attorneys, cannabis lawyers. Here's the thing, you really don't know what's going on and what your assistant prosecutors are saying and doing. You can't possibly know. There's 100 or almost 100 assistant prosecutors in the office. But I'm also going to, you know, create those advisory committees, not just with lawyers, but with community members. I mean, particularly in Pontiac, where people feel so disenfranchised from the prosecutor's office and the criminal justice system. You know, meeting with people regularly, community leaders or stakeholders on a regular basis is critical. The other thing that's critical is transparency. You know, Cooper will not release any of the stats. We FOIA'd them. She says she doesn't keep track of who she charges and what they charge and what warrants she writes and what she doesn't, and which is obviously ridiculous. But you have to, you know, and that's the first thing I'm going to do. Like, who are we charging? And what are we charging them with? And who's getting charge amendments? And who's getting, you know, like harsher sentences? And you know, it's going to be poor people and people of color. That's who are being charged at a higher rates and being sentenced to stiffer incarceration sentences. There's also, I think it's important to, you know, regularly have public meetings where the general public can come in and ask the prosecutor questions. That's really important. You know, look, I think there's a reason that it's not going on now, and it's that, you know, you got to be able to answer some really tough questions. And it's not easy. I mean, I do this all day long. And, you know, look, people aren't just saying, oh, great, I'll support you. You know, they're asking really good questions and really tough questions. Like, what are you going to do about the fact that the office currently is not diverse at all? How are you going to change that? You should hold people accountable. You should hold your elected officials accountable. And honestly, the fact that Cooper promised a bunch of things that in 12 years she never did, hurts me because, people are very suspicious and cautious because they've been sold a bill of goods time and time again. And she took office. She won't, right now, this is kind of more for the lawyers in the group. If you want a charge amendment or a reduction, as Michael just pointed out, that assistant prosecutor has to write a memo, and it can't be a one-page memo. It's got to be really thorough. They got to take it up the chain. They usually have to talk to Cooper herself or Paul Walton, who's her deputy. At some point to get a OUIL amended or reduced on a first offense, and they're viewed poorly if they ask, they just say, no, I'm not doing it. Forget it. It's not worth it. And they go to trial. So that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense.
I know I got a lot more. I just wanted to help make a point here that you don't really hear publicly from Jessica Cooper a lot. Since she's spoken, I haven't heard her talk. I can't tell you the last time. I know she shows up at a couple city fairs or whatever. I've seen her, walking or with her group or whatever. But in getting ready for tonight, I looked at your website, and I want to shout that out here. It's McDonaldforprosecutor.com. And if people want to donate, they can do that there. And
that would be great.
We have this event at 6:15, which everyone who's listening is invited to. And we're going to, talk about similar stuff, and everyone can experience their first political Zoom gathering. But to make a point, which I think is an insight into your candidate, I went to her website because I wanted to see what she's boasting about, what kind of criminal justice reform she's talking about. I know the Facebook ad she uses, she boasts that her office has always preserved evidence, as if that's something to boast about, and for appeals and whatnot. But me and David and a lot of others can tell you they were been destroying marijuana plants and getting away with it, not carrying and defending it, whatever. But this is the point I'm trying to make. There are these there's a fact check section on her website.
It's terrible.
Into some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen in my life. This person should not be in office. I mean, it is like a Twitter tirade of anger and hostility and petty nonsense. It's like she's all bordering on professional on all the other pages, and she's like,
it's terrible.
Trash. It's like the mean housewives of Oakland County.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I don't usually draw anybody's attention to it because it's hidden on her website, and you know what it is. I'm just going to be honest with you. I have a huge social media presence, and so I do a lot of Facebook Lives, especially in the light of COVID. And I really went after her about a few things. The first thing was she didn't let the people in her office work from home during COVID. And they were calling me all the time, staff members, attorneys, people I didn't really even know. And so I kind of called her out on it, and she immediately sent some people home, but still not as many as she should. I mean, if you look at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, it's a ghost town. The Attorney General has all of her people at home, except a very few people. So she feels attacked and defensive, and she's responding in a way that I'm glad to hear your response because, when I read it, I think, it's hard to explain it, but she makes light of, she's mad that Republicans have donated to my campaign. She's mad that, she calls me an entry-level prosecutor. Okay, well, I happen to think first-degree child sexual assault is a pretty serious crime. And those are the felonies that I tried. So, but I just want to talk about her policies. I mean, I could fill a lot of pages with the personal, terrible, contemptuous stories about Jessica Cooper. She's been sued twice and the county had to settle. One was for discrimination. One was from very abusive behavior she had towards a chief. I mean, I literally could spend the next 2 hours telling you all these terrible stories, but at the end of the day, what I really care about is policy. What I really care about is what I want voters to look at. What has she done in 12 years? And, I want to talk about reform. I don't really want to personally attack her.
Let me personally attack her for you, if you don't mind. There is this, we were just talking about this. She's bringing it. I didn't bring this up. This is on her page. It says, demand to talk to managers. What is she talking about? Oh, we're talking about it right now. They're inaccessible. You got to write a memo. No, you can't talk to anybody. He claimed, this is how she presents this on it. Claim, Karen, you insist, top. And I don't know where she got this from. She doesn't give a link. She doesn't give a source. She just I heard Karen insist that top management in my office is inaccessible to the defense bar. No one wants to talk to Jessica or Paul Walton because they are demeaning. I will listen as a thing that you're saying. Fact that these defense attorneys are like Karen's meme. So I've become a meme now. David, you are too, and everyone else.
Yeah.
To talk to the manager. She says,
By the way, I really hate that. I hate the meme.
Discuss pending cases assigned to current prosecutor with defense attorney is a matter of maintaining an ethical office. I'm not even sure what that means. I refuse to talk to my opponent. We have to go to war, plead guilty, or go to trial. That's what she's saying. Like there's no discussion. Why do we have pre-trials? Why do we have anything? Why do the court's built on?
Why do you have assistant prosecutors, Michael, if you're not going to give them discretion to reduce a file after they look at it and decide that it's the wrong charge? Why do you even need assistant prosecutors?
So here's her best. This is what's so troubling because there's no source. It's like I heard that hydrochloroquine, just try it. Works great. We're all, I know they said it's going to kill me in my heart. It just, I'm trying it. It's gone good. People should think about it. So this is her quote. You want to talk about demeaning, talk to people who appeared in Karen's courtroom, talk to judges who tried to work with her. One judge said to me, well, she's your problem now. This is some of the most petty, unprofessional set of words put on a paper to describe someone involved in a campaign. It is really.
And what she's really angry about is that I've had several events, and I would say of the 19 or 20 judges that we have on the bench, I would say maybe all but 6 or 7 of them were at my fundraisers. They can't publicly endorse, but they were supportive, and they've contributed money to my campaign, and that is upsetting to her, I'm sure.
Alan, I'm trying to unmute you. Go ahead, offer your legal experience here. You got any questions for the judge?
Yeah, one question. What's your website if we want to donate?
McDonaldforprosecutor.com.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing I've noticed with prosecutors being bullies in court is saying that if the accused doesn't waive preliminary examination, we're going to add charges. Like we'll add the felony firearm charge if you hold an exam, and then you're stuck with it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. Your preliminary exam is your right.
Yeah.
That's your right. That's your due process right, and you shouldn't be punished for exercising it. So the threat, I think, is just corrupt. Now, I remember when I had child sexual assault cases where I had young victims who would testify at preliminary exam. If more charges through their testimony actually were present, I would add a charge. But threatening somebody, don't exercise your constitutional right, or we're going to punish you for it. Just like it's wrong, I think, for judges to say, if you go to trial, I'm offering you this Cobb's now, but if you go to trial, it's off the table. I'm going to sentence you to the top of the guidelines. That's just not right.
Yeah. Well, that's the other half of the defendant's face in court. The first half is routine in Oakland County to be threatened with more charges if you hold exam. And then it's routine across the state for every defendant to know that if they go to trial, they're going to get a more severe sentence than if they plead guilty to the same charge. They just plead straight up.
I'm trying to get Steve Miller on. He works in my office, Judge, and he's also a retired police officer. He says he has a police-related question for you. Steve, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Judge.
Hi.
So what I've noticed since working on this side of things, since I've retired and working in Michael's office, is these drug units kind of just run rampant, and I don't know. I don't want to say I've noticed they do illegal behavior, but it's questionable police practices. And then some of these cases that we've had come through our office, like I often tell Michael, I say, Maria, if I would have sent this case to Maria Petito down at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, she would have called me up screaming at me, telling me I don't have a damn case. I said, what has happened with these drug units and these prosecutors that just kind of coddle and take care and they give approval to behavior that is otherwise questionable for police officers. We've lost the integrity in these drug units, and how will you deal with these people as a prosecutor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, Steve. That is not going to be easy. It's just not. There is a culture there among law enforcement and the partnership that extends for many, many years, which I'm just going to be candid. When I was an assistant prosecutor, there's just something about it that always just made me really uncomfortable, and I wasn't really sure why. You know, as a young prosecutor, watching certain things that occur in court with law enforcement, particularly in the drug units, you know, it's just its own separate world in how they deal with it. And honestly, I mean, I really think it's just putting personal agenda over what's in the public interest. And you have people who have been there for so long, they're never going to think that marijuana is okay, ever. It's about their personal issues. It's not about what's in the public interest. And that's what really has to change.
You know, in Oakland County, there was a situation. Michael had me come and testify before Judge Warren as an expert in property and evidence processing. And there was a Sergeant Stewart, I believe, on the case. And just to watch his demeanor up on the stand and the way he was, in essence, disrespectful to Michael, an attorney, asking the question. And, you know, but then we come to find out a few months later, Sergeant Stewart was involved in a little trouble himself with, I think he got in trouble for having relations with some of his informants or something along those lines. And it's like,
yeah, I mean, it turns out we're all human beings.
Exactly.
We're all human beings,
yeah.
You know, and you just see, this is what I'm sort of really excited about too, you know, changing the culture of the office. You don't have to consider yourself immune from you know, humanity to be a prosecutor. That's why I think it's really important that prosecutors get involved in the communities with which they prosecute.
I like what you said about the problem-solving team.
Yeah.
There's better ways to do things.
I don't want to hire people who just, you know, want to put people in jail or prison and they are one-track mind about and not care about who the person is or where they came from. You know, it's obviously your job is to prosecute. And look, I loved being an assistant prosecutor. I loved representing the people of the state of Michigan. I loved helping victims who are, you know, victims of crime and feeling like you were helping and doing something about it. But it's time now to pivot and also understand that our real job is making people safe and making us, you know, a better community. And mass incarceration is not making us a better community. It's just not.
No.
And I left Jaffe with, you know, where I was a shareholder and I was making a lot of money and it was a great job. I took a huge pay cut to run for judge. And the one thing being the family court really allowed me to do is, you know, I stopped fighting and I just really listened. And I got to listen to juveniles and, you know, self-represented litigants a lot of time in family court, people who have had their children taken away. You know, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was the judge who would come off the bench and hug somebody if they did something great and sit down with a kid. It's just who I am. So I feel like that job was such a blessing because it really brought out in me who I really am. I am in my very heart a compassionate person, but I am also very strong and smart enough to know when you have to be strong, but you can also be compassionate. I think that's what we need and what we want. And, you know, that's why I really do need help and support because I believe most people think the same way I do. I really do. I think most people don't, you know, I get a lot of questions about restorative justice, which is, you know, a program where victims of crime come together with the person who, you know, committed the crime and people get really antsy and awful, you know, really worried about it. But the studies show, first of all, nobody participates in restorative justice unless they consent to it. But the studies really show that most victims actually want to. Most victims of crime actually want to find a way and a path to move forward. And most of us don't want to be weighted down with hate and fear. We just don't, and it's
no way to live. It's no way to live. There's enough grief out there that people are suffering day to day than they have to
there really is, and I think we have to find a way to make our assistant prosecutors understand that they're prosecuting people. They're prosecuting real people. And I think you need some life experience, to understand that lots of people do things, they mess up, they make mistakes. But what do we want? Do we want to put them in jail and incarcerate and never see them again? Or do we want to help them hold them accountable in a way that, as a society we need to, but also with really an eye towards how do we prevent this from happening again?
And using discretion, I think, is an important, a lot of the ways to describe offices, that's our policy. Sorry, we're not even going to think about it. We don't need to know, and there are judges, unfortunately, that say the same thing. Sorry, counsel, I do this in every one of these kind of cases. And my response to elected officials that aren't using their discretion is, why are you in that office? We might as well get a computer that's just going to punch stuff out.
It's similar in the police department. Anytime I try and bring up something at a command staff meeting, it's, no, we won't do it that way. And why not? Because that's the way we've always done it. You get that from probably upper management in every different career field, that people just don't, it's too much effort to make good change.
Listen, we have to let the judge go. I want to offer one last question. It's kind of a yes or no. We can let her answer affect everyone's opinion on whether they should vote for her or not. How's that? Okay? Just kidding. They're talking about jury trials via Zoom. They had one in Texas. Yay or nay on jury trials via Zoom?
No way.
Okay.
No way.
Very good. That's the right answer.
No way.
Right. Anyway, so listen, thank you for putting up with us. We appreciate you taking your time and telling us about your issues you're passionate about, and very, very much enjoyed talking to you. And we've
absolutely.
For prosecutor is the website. June 15th, we're gonna have another. We're gonna have
hopefully I'll see you all there June 15th.
Excellent.
I need support. I need monetary support, no question, but I also need volunteers and people to share in my Facebook page, and people to text their friends. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can get involved. But if we don't work and we're not willing to do anything, then everything will stay the same. So that's what I'm really hoping. I really need your support.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on the 15th. Thank you very much, Joe.
Okay. Thank you.
Karen. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
All right, that was Karen McDonald running for Oakland County prosecutor. She is running against the notorious Jessica Cooper, who we've told many tales and stories about, unfortunately, on this broadcast. Up next, we have Ryan Basore, a friend of the show, longtime fan of Planet Green Trees, really good guy. We are going to go to a break. I just want to let everybody know what we're going to do when we come back from the break. And Ryan, we're happy to hear. We're looking forward to talking to you. Thanks for being patient. We will be right back. You're listening to Planet Green Trees, episode 465, Zen in the Art of Life Maintenance. We'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2020 Digital Hash Bash broadcast, hosted by Jamie Lowell. Jamie, you're out there, aren't you?
I'm here, hosted by all of us. I'm not taking the credit, that's for sure.
Nope. A whole big gang of us. I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker here. BDT Smoke Shop opened in 1973. They're the #1 head shop in the Southeast Michigan for more than a dozen years. This gentleman is the face of BDT Smoke Shop, but he's so much more, and I hope he gets a chance to explain that. Let me introduce Mr. Curtis Gore.
I hear a bit of an echo.
Hey, Curtis.
Locked up. My intro was so good, he didn't feel the need to stay around to say anything. Awesome!
No, unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Curtis. Yay! Thank you.
Oh, boy. Poor internet connection, I think.
All right.
Just as we thought things were going well.
You're doing great. We can see you and hear.
I could hear the intro.
We can hear you and see you. Keep going.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be on our first ever virtual Hash Bash over Skype. This has been fantastic. I think it's time to have a little fun. Can you still see me?
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
We got something big going on in the background here. Kind of chilling things out here at the Hazel Park BDTs. Well, it's obviously been a tough time for all of us. But we're going to do our best getting through.
You know, Curtis, it's difficult to know what is an essential service and what isn't. How's BDTs doing with this whole situation? Are you an essential service? Are you able to service customers?
No, we are, all our stores are shut down right now. But fortunately, with our gas and chemical company, Bumblebee Gas and Extraction, we've been actually servicing the community by providing isopropyl alcohol and non-denatured alcohol and actually turning that into a sanitizer. And we're still
so awesome.
Curtis, we may have lost you.
Aww.
That's a shame. If you notice Curtis's background, those of us who can still see him on freeze frame, he's at the Marijuana Museum, which is existing in Hazel Park. Jamie Lowell's been there before. That happens to be a great rack of magazines and other memorabilia, not just from Cheech and Chong, but other remnants of the era. It's quite an impressive place, Jamie.
Yeah, we did a Jazz Cabbage Cafe broadcast from there.
Sure did.
Helped to show it off and had a really great lineup of people there participating.
Yeah. That hat he was wearing itself deserves a story. That was pretty awesome. And a fog machine for the Hash Bash show? That's great.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting into farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
15 seconds. We're live. Welcome back.
We're live. Welcome back. You're listening to Planet Green Trees, episode number
Green Trees.
465. We're unfortunately reporting Jamie has a brain freeze. Apparently, he's outside and he's illuminating. We're glad that. Well, let's get right back in here because we have a very special guest. We've had him waiting for too long. He's clearly taking advantage of the no shave, stay at home policy. His name's Ryan Basore. He's got a fascinating story.
There's one in the basement. I think it's a green collar.
Mute Steve. There's a long story here. Ryan has been on the show before. Many people may know him, and for those that don't, there was a time in Michigan when medical marijuana was being brutalized by not just the state but also the feds. More predominantly on the west side of the state, the actual former U.S. attorney for that district was an individual named Pat Miles. He ran against Dana Nessel. And Ryan, of course, was supporting Dana Nessel and may have been one of the things that helped impact and carry Dana over the top in light of the number of voters that showed up supporting the legalization of marijuana. But Ryan was subject to a prosecution in federal court in the Western District of case that was known as the Lansing 7. All caregivers that were engaged in medical marijuana activity within compliance under state law, and of course in federal court, you don't have the benefit of the state law protections. And where I went to federal prison, got out, and the story that we're excited to talk about begins at that particular point. And it's a fascinating story because he's developed his own brand called Redemption. He's secured several investors that are helping to promote it. He's got a specific demand for it throughout the state, so much so that I understand he's got a tell a lot of his friends and people that he knows in the community know that he wants to limit that particular distribution. Yep. But without further ado, let me get on the man, Ryan Basore. Please welcome him to Planet Green Trees. Ryan, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everybody.
I hope I hit most of that accurately. I mean, there's a lot here to talk about and why I think a lot of people are really interested in what is redemption? I know I want you to talk about that, but also the social equity piece that is associated with this. And I say that because just this past week, I know Lara announced some other, information about their social equity program.
Right.
And I don't know that there's that many people throughout the state that say they've gotten the benefits of it. It's clearly for the recreational law. And that doesn't have implications for the medical MMFLA. But please explain first the product redemption, and then let's talk a little bit about the social equity piece that's involved here.
Yep. So, everybody froze. You guys hear me?
We can hear you. I can hear you.
We can hear you, Ryan.
He's frozen. Uh-oh. He might be
bandwidth has been a problem, especially in that area. Like we talked about with the flooding, it's made it difficult for some things.
Okay.
That was a nice encapsulation of the story up to that point, Michael. There's a lot to it, but you had a lot of great points there.
Okay.
We'll text him and try and get Ryan to rejoin us. But Basore's story is pretty amazing. When he came out, he was, of course, still under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Prisons, so he had some restrictions. During that time, he was able to slowly return back to the cannabis industry through a variety of different methods. And when he was finally released from the Bureau of Prisons, he was able to use those connections and those skills that he developed in order to launch this line of products, Redemption, which includes something called diamonds. How many of us on this call have actually had diamonds before? Diamonds
I've
are a
had
type
them
of concentrated
a bunch of times, and I do have to say that I appreciate them quite a bit.
Well, diamonds have a little bit of a story because they originally were on the market prior to the legalization law coming out. When the Marijuana Regulatory Agency found out how the regular people were making diamonds, they said, no, that doesn't sound like a safe method. Prove you can do it safely and you can have this diamonds back. So several companies innovated new ways in order to create diamonds, which is a process which creates a lot of pressure, and then they were able to relaunch. David?
So what is a diamond? Tell tell everybody what those are, just in case, because I don't think anybody knows.
A diamond.
Oh my God, Ryan, where is he?
9.99, like oftentimes goes up to as high as like 9.99% THC crystalline. And what people were doing to make these diamonds is they were putting closed jars with butane still in it of like after a run of hash, and they put the jar to an oven.
Jesus Christ.
To let it slowly turn into the diamonds where it would separate. And that was a very unsafe method. I believe Lion Labs, the Element brand, was the first ones to get Lara to approve a safe method of doing so. Ryan, we want to hear from you about diamonds.
All right.
We love those diamonds.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm working with my processor that I'm working with, and then I'll kind of give you what redemption is, how I set it up, and how it works. I know a lot of people little confused on the concept. I love it. But Fresh Coast, it took them about 11 months. They're two younger guys. I could say young. They're about 30, Sam and Elliot, and they've been caregivers in Michigan for 10 years though, and it took them 11 months to get their diamond process approved. And Rick's been there with me to their facility, and it looks like something you'd wear, like old school underwater deep sea diving type helmet, like just crazy. These pressure castles. So yeah, we're coming out with diamonds. Been delayed because of packaging issues, but all my diamond and live resin carts packaging is in, and those are about 10, 12 days from.
Where are we going to find these products?
I'm starting off like, good thing is as you guys know, and you guys are many of the people I wanted to first work with stores and people that I like and get along with, which hasn't always been the case the last 3 or 4 years. So they're going to be in starting off up north. They'll be in, of course, Botanical Company in Tawas, Farmhouse in Grand Rapids, Lake Effect in Portage, in Lansing, which a lot of my friends are at. There's going to be a lot of stores: Edgewood Wellness, Stateside, Old 27, Pure Options, Homegrown. Gage, of course, who gave me the social equity grant, opens tomorrow, and a couple more. And then Arbor's Wellness and Oma Medicine in Ann Arbor, Sticky Ipsy in Ypsilanti, and many, and I got more coming. I actually, that's what I'm opening with. I ran out of flower, and I didn't understand how big a demand there was, especially on the rec side. So about 75% of my products are going to be available in the rec market, and about 25% medical. So I'll just kind of give you a background. I was working, consulting, doing some real estate stuff, and was a business development director of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. But always my dream has been to sell marijuana legally and market and brand it, and be able to help people. So I've been thinking about a way to figure out the licensing agreements, and I was showing some properties to the people at Gage and Lansing, and I met them, and they were really the first ones. The one owner's they're all Detroit guys and been in the grow store and the caregiver industry for a decade at least. And they know who I was. They showed me a lot of respect. They were smoking while we were hanging out, and it was the first time like one of the bigger companies kind of acted like that, and I got along with, and then started consulting with them a little bit, and they just said, hey, we're doing social equity grants. We want you to be the first one, and what do you got for us? And so I said, well, I'll come up with something. And I was up talking to my good buddy Drew Driver up at Driven Grow.
Oh no, we lost him again right in mid-story.
Sometimes you come back. Come on.
Yep.
Come on,
Drew Driver is an old school Michigan cannabis activist from the Michigan Association of Compassion Centers way back in the day. He's a licensed caregiver that has a cultivation license. Ryan also partnered with several other cultivators in the northern Michigan area, as well as processors, in order to be able to produce his line of products, which includes flower, the aforementioned diamonds, concentrates, and pre-rolls.
The Real Leaf Solutions, Kalkaska.
Outstanding. Been at all those facilities. We did a series of videos to promote the Redemption product. I wrote, directed, and narrated those videos. It was wonderful to be able to go in those facilities and look at the NASA-like conditions that those guys have. It's really amazing. The high-tech stuff. Wow. By the way, David Rudoy wins the award for best background tonight. I absolutely love that set of 4 pictures he's got in his background.
Rick, then it's not over. I got a lot in my dugout.
Right.
I've just been going straight up normal, but now we got a little more comfortable.
Challenge gauntlets tossed down. Okay, Michael.
Ryan's trying to come back in right now too.
I hope so. Good.
The people at Farmhouse and Chris Silva, who was actually our campaign manager for the 2016 MI Legalized run, is involved with that organization. He's been in the industry since then and been doing a lot of cool stuff. Had the idea and actually allowed us, Botanical Company, to come in on it too, and on the purchases of Ryan's products when we're in our stores. Those who have had misdemeanors or felonies for cannabis altercations are getting an additional percentage off.
You guys hear me?
Yep. Good.
Sorry about that. So I'm working with 3 growers, all licensed in the rec and medical, and but they're also my longtime friends. I've been friends with Drew Driver for 11 years. I first met him when I was recruiting for the MAC in early 2010 and driving around, and stopped at his dispensary in Gaylord, and we became buddies and friends ever since. And then Tom Beller and Krista Beller with Real Leaf Solutions, I helped them get their property in Kalkaska. But we met back in when I got out of prison. Tom had been around, just not involved in politics when I was, but he was caregiving and supplying a lot of the great flower at Kind, and we became friends there. And then Kevin Pybus at True Cannabis, he was a part of Canasur, from Howell, Michigan originally, and just all good people. And then I met Sam and Elliot from Fresh Coast. I've been at some different meetings. These guys I'd show up at the Acme, Traverse City, all over, and these guys were there, and I was like, who are these kids? Like, they're really, really smart, hardworking. And they asked me to come up to a meeting in Solon Township up in Leelanau, and I showed up, and it was like in this old church, about 150 people there in middle of summer, and it was like 100 and some degrees, and it was something like out of the 30s or 40s. Bailey was there. There was a newly retired DEA, FBI, county prosecutor, another assistant county prosecutor, the sheriff, the undersheriff, state. Everybody was there, and it was a riot. There's people were screaming, and these kids just stood up and took it the whole time, and I was impressed. So, anyways, those are the people I'm working with right now. I'm going to be working with a couple more. So what I did was came up with, we picked some of their genetics, and I've been sourcing a lot of genetics that are starting to make their way into their facilities. So in about 9, 10, 11 months, we're going to see a lot of cool stuff that I'm excited about. But I'm launching tomorrow. Like I said, Gage gave me the social equity grant. Tomorrow I'll be in their store in Lansing, and then in the other 12 stores on Saturday. But we're launching with prepackaged pre-rolls, 1 gram, 5 packs that are 0.7, live resin carts, diamonds, sugar, shatter. We're going to be doing RSO gummies, just basically a lot of the stuff, and then prepackaged 8s. So a lot of the stuff that I would want to buy and I like and would want to use. But then how I set it up is, I have licensing agreements that are approved by the state, and it felt funny that they approved them. I didn't think it was possible, but it was actually went pretty smooth. And 10% of all my revenue goes to the nonprofit I'm setting up to help people that have been affected by the war on cannabis, whether they're incarcerated, putting money on people's books, which I know what that's like to not have. If you don't have money on your books, it makes prison a lot tougher. Helping people when they get out. I was in the halfway house in Kalamazoo, and I'd say over 80% of the people I was in there with are back in, or back in and out already, and probably back in again, because you're just set up to fail if you don't have friends and family and a support system. It's pretty wild what they put you through, and just what it takes to people working 60 hours coming with child support payments, and you're not allowed to work for your family, not allowed to start a business, and you're working $10 an hour, stay humble, and then you have $50 in your pocket at the end of the week. So there's that. There's training. One of my friends from prison that was in there for marijuana, he's coming up here and is going to be interviewing for a grow job. Is excited, getting people, whether it be trades, whatever type of training that they need. And then really starting in Michigan, we got people still in prison for marijuana, and some of them, there's the Michael Thompson cases, and there's different ones, which is just ridiculous, and push first in Michigan for more reform, and then see what it takes from there. But I've been lucky to, it's been cool since I've been starting to launch videos, and which Rick's on. Rick helped me with all my videos, and appreciate that. Since I've been doing that, I've started getting people contacted me doing kind of similar things across the country, and it's been fun taking calls with them. And talked with a gentleman out of Florida just yesterday that did 10 years, and he was one of the major factors in getting the law down there where felons are going to be able to vote again. So people reaching out just all over. It's fun talking to them. There's this whole community of people, big marijuana cases across the country, and that I followed, and now we're talking. So I don't know where that's going to go, but it's cool. I want to invite them to Michigan and have them come up to the lounge we're trying to do and have a party. So.
Well, first of all, I want to mention again that the opening of and the first time that the brand is going to be available, is that right? It opens tomorrow?
Tomorrow it'll be at the Lansing Gage store, and then at Saturday it'll be at the other stores that I mentioned. And moving forward, it'll be in a lot more, but it's nice. You get to pick and choose, just like I said, and with the people that I'm working with on the products, the growers and processors. And it's nice if I don't, we solve problems. People don't lose their temper. Everyone's just, in it for the right reasons. And then same thing with the provisioning centers. I've had delays. I was getting my packaging out of a factory in Wuhan, and they had the Chinese New Year, and then Corona hit. So it's been something else. So I'm adjusting that and working on getting domestically, or at least have the option of domestic and countries besides China. To be honest with you, I don't want to rely on them. And everyone's been wonderful with it to work with, and it's nice because as Jamie and I know, that you can have a really bad situation, so made a special point in my life to only work with good people, and if they're not good, then I'm not. So I don't care what the monetary difference is either way.
And I didn't want to wanted to underscore the fact that you decided to come on Planet Green Trees the day before the opening. Obviously, you wanted to save that special for us, and we appreciate it. Yes. It had nothing to do with the lockdown and any of those delays. I know that wasn't. But I want to get back to the other. I mean, I'm interested in this from the lawyer's perspective. There's some other things that have happened in the news. There's another, I think, store that has gotten into a similar situation. And I'm saying this, and also for people that are listening, they may feel that they've been kept out of the marketplace. They don't, they say, so what's social equity? Mm-hmm. But because you are, I mean, as we're sitting here, you are participating in both the medical and recreational licensed industry. And I think, you talked about your growers and things like that. If I'm not mistaken, you not received per se a license to participate, grow, sell the marijuana. You are branded and contracted your intellectual property with these entities. They've empowered you to, it's your brand and you're producing this, and there's a demand for it, and that's how the relationship works. I just want to make that clear because there are people that were like, if there was social equity, Adam Brook, I'm just going to call him out. Adam Brook with his purple hair, rainbow hair that he wears now. Just kidding. Love Adam. But he says, what social equity? I should be able to get into the marketplace. So, there's an answer to that, and a lot of people that may feel kept out right now because you're in all of it right now. How did that, somebody say, how did that happen? But I'm saying to you, it is the creativeness and the branding and the
relationships.
What's also interesting from a lawyer's perspective is, as we do a lot of licensing and business work in the cannabis industry, and we've been successful in getting people their licenses over and over again, there's always the questions of the persons that may not be eligible for license, like getting a license, being the applicant, and how can they, and then you got the cannabis people, right? And they can't sometimes operate together, but the state is not so much, they can't own it. You got to disclose whatever. So there's different relationships there's a challenge of creating relationships if they can't exist until such time as the people may become eligible. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't, right? Because if it's not in writing, you can't hold people to whatever, as some people have learned the hard way. But what you're talking about is circumventing all of that. And what I was going to say is that the way that people may get around some of those things is to have employees or contractors or independent contractors that find themselves involved with the activity, all behavior that is not supervised or overlooked or needs to be approved by LARA. Right. However, your situation, the contracting of intellectual property, does require approval through LARA, right? They have to see what the contracts say. They want to know the percentages of what your take may be.
Yep, can't do percentages in Michigan. Oh no, Michigan doesn't allow, LARA doesn't allow you to do it as a percentage basis. You got to set a unit price. I learned that one. So
okay, so it's an interesting dynamic because here you go. I just want to draw this legal thing out here. Before the creation of the MMFLA, any marijuana contract or whatever was deemed against public policy. Schuyler Engel had a case. He went into circuit court. And he argued this is an invalid contract. It's about caregivers, and someone got sued. Hey, I want my caregiver money, whatever, and it's not a policy. So, but then the MMFLA changed the law saying that we want people to engage in contracts. It's not against public policy anymore because as we go forward in licensing, how can people hold the people accountable, whatever. But to that extent, many of the contracts that are necessary to run a business and to enter into in business are not overseen by the licensing agency, unless it's illegal per se. So they don't really care who you're employing. They care if you're doing something wrong. They don't care as much where you're buying, whatever. But for intellectual property, specifically regarding cannabis, they are interested. And I just wanted to draw that point out where someone could, contract for employment or some other kind of services and not need to be approved. The intellectual property does have to go through a process, right? So explain a little what that was like, Ryan. What was how invasive was it? How much do they want to get up in your bank account and find out what's going on or where it came from? And did you feel any excess scrutiny because of your, because of the marijuana situation?
No, the whole licensing. I am going through my pre-qual and on the rec side. I'll reference that, the difference. But it was actually pretty simple. I ran an office. I remodeled one of the offices in Covert Law up top and in Old Town, and I have a real good time there. And James McGilly, who's he handled it for me. And we had a contract, and it's pretty simple licensing agreement. And we sent it over to LARA, and they didn't, it was no bank accounts, it was no criminal history, it was none of that. I mean, it was actually pretty painless. I might have made a few calls to, make sure it got sped up or treated fairly. I don't know if that helped or not, but it wasn't bad compared to. Now I'm getting pre-qualified. I am going to be on some rec licenses, and that has been a totally different story. I know it's better than medical because I was around when what everyone went through with that, but just some of the questions they're asking. But another thing on the social equity, I'm glad they did this. I was upset, so I was hoping to get I wish they would do some refunds. I qualify with, obviously I'm a marijuana felon. I was a caregiver in 2009 to 2012. and I live in one of the qualifying cities, East Lansing, but I didn't qualify for it at all because I was in prison. I didn't get the 5 years of living straight in East Lansing. So I was like, I qualify for all this, but because I qualify, I was in prison, and now I don't get anything. So I am glad they revamped that. I just wish I could get a discount on some of the money I spent with them, but I don't think that's going to happen.
So I want to talk about those two things. First of all, the licensing in the licensing that you're talking about is because they're in areas that have opted in. I'm assuming it's Lansing. There's areas around there that that have opted in for recreational, and the preclusion for those wanting to become licensed do not have the limitations for recreational. Most people would be eligible, felonies or no felonies, as long as it's not a crime selling to a minor. But one cannot get one of the 5 licenses that are available under the MMFLA unless they've have a license for under the. You can't get one of those licenses. You have one of those up until December of 2021. There are other licenses that are available: the micro business, the
lounge,
Class A, the lounge, and the marijuana event organizer. So I'm assuming those are the type you got. You said the social.
Yeah, but what it could be someone already in existing entities, and I might be 7, 8, 9, 10% on the rec license where they already have it. I'm not, I'm not going out and trying to run some, big operation by myself. I'm not into that.
And I didn't mean to draw you out and kind of like cross-examine you on that. I thought for the listeners, they might be interested in what might be eligible. Like, you are going to have your name on a club, right? I mean, that's in the works if you haven't already. And that's because you have been pre-qualified or could be pre-qualified under the recreational law. It's not one of the licenses that requires you to have a MMFLA license, and Lansing has opted in. They probably zoned an area where you can.
It's not going to be in Lansing though. They gave me. I went through I tried to get one in Lansing. We're gonna. We can talk about it. We're gonna have a lounge in northwestern Michigan. It's gonna be incredible. It's gonna feel like an old Western saloon. But in Lansing, I went through and tried to get one of the lounges, and they gave me 0 out of 6 points for marijuana business experience and 0 out of 6 points for Lansing business experience. So I said, get F Lansing. I'm done with you. I'm going to hang out in my office, but I'm putting my energy somewhere else.
Pretty wild. So let's talk about the social equity program, because there was just an announcement of some kind. They're trying to expand it. But let me say this: the social equity piece that you benefited from was that Gage, which is a licensed entity, right, was able to give you a grant or a investment in your brand. And how does it, I mean, obviously you got the money that allowed you to develop the brand and do what needs to be done. The legal side of probably getting it trademarked or whatever. But do they got a benefit probably for it? They got some kind of tax deduction, I imagine. And but is that the extent that it could happen? How could somebody else, let's say, if they were seeking social equity grant, and don't have the unique situation that you find yourself in, where else would it benefit them, and how could one seek that out if you were going to?
I mean, I think it's more along the lines of it happened for me through networking and relationships and working hard. If somebody really wants it, there's a lot of these companies out there, I think, that are looking to do stuff. They just don't know, and maybe they're so focused on even trying to figure out how to pass their grow. And, everyone, like a lot of these bigger companies coming into Michigan aren't that well run right now. They're kind of scattered all over. So I would say, come up with an idea and start pitching it to people. I mean, that's just what it takes.
Let me see if I can jump in and explain something real quick. There's 2 different social equity programs we're talking about here. One of them is the state requirement for social equity. Mm-hmm. The other is a corporate requirement for social equity, which is built into the legalization program. If you're going to get a license to sell legalized marijuana in Michigan, you have to have a social equity give back program. So each individual company with a legalization license has to come up with their own social equity way of giving back. Some of them just donate money. Some of them do other things. Gage decided to do this $50,000 for each individual city that was originally named as a social equity grant program. And what Ryan's saying is, in addition to the state discounts on the application fees, finding corporate sponsors that can engage you if you think you're a social equity winner. That's how some people could could qualify, right, Ryan?
That's correct. And they did give their second one. They can't announce it yet. It's been affected by the COVID, and they wanted to have me launch first, but that's moving forward. But it's really, I tell anyone, just, come up with an idea, come up with a plan. There's people out there to help. And, there's going to be a lot of cannabis and grown and products out there. And as the market gets saturated, how do you sell it? So it's still, I believe Michigan, there's just unlimited possibilities and opportunities for anybody that really wants to get involved, unless you sold drugs to a minor. But besides that,
And let me lay out a couple of things, because you were talking about refunds or whatnot, and how that, and let me explain a little bit of what that means. For the individuals that are attempting to obtain, and under the recreational law, getting the benefits of the social equity, there's fees and costs and licensing application fees significantly reduced. There's a 40% discount on the $6,000 application fee.
Yeah.
License initially costs $25,000 for retail, $40,000 for processing businesses or growers up to 2,000 plants, based on proposed rules that have yet to be finalized. Some of those things are potentially out of reach if it's not just recreational and you don't have a medical before. But anyone with a marijuana-related misdemeanor conviction receives 25% discount, as well as anyone who's lived in a designated social equity community for 5 of the last 10 years. Another 10% exemption applies to applicants who've registered as medical marijuana caregivers for at least 2 years between 2008 and 2017. So far, the program hasn't had a lot of full participation. There's only 2 companies that have obtained recreational marijuana license under the social equity program. The program was created to encourage participation in the industry by people from communities that have disproportionately been impacted by the war on marijuana. And here's the most important point, I think, and this is obviously one of the hurdles to the entire industry in general. Many would-be benefactors, such as residents of major cities like Detroit, Saginaw, Pontiac, were previously out of luck, since the communities, along with nearly 1,400 other cities, townships, villages, and state, don't allow recreational marijuana businesses. So they're losing out, and it's affecting the possible social equity program. So these cities, Detroit, they may, and even, I think the local governance doesn't even understand. I think there's a quote here from James Tate. It's clear that Detroit's medical marijuana industry is overwhelmingly owned and operated by individuals who don't live in the city and take their dollars back to their communities. Tate said when he urged the city not to pass a recreational marijuana ordinance in January, it's critical that they take the time necessary now to ensure that the impending recreational marijuana industry will properly reflect the demographics within the city. So that's an interesting approach that they're taking. They want to make sure that the benefit factors of the recreational is going to benefit the people within the community. And there's not too many towns that are taking advantage of it. Do you know of any others, Ryan? You mentioned one up north. What are your thoughts on that?
Kalkaska is just on the ball. I think that's the best example of what marijuana can do for a town, and what's coming there. It's been pretty amazing. I saw, Kalamazoo just got in. Obviously, Baldwin Township up at the Botanical Company, but Lansing is Lansing's really been disappointing. See how things changed. We lost our worst council person, Jody Washington. Thankfully, I worked on that and we helped get Brandon Betts in there, who's been incredible, great friend to cannabis. But they didn't want any social equity, even though they're allowed it. They don't want to give breaks. They want to give social equity. They want to know how much money you have and who you know. And they've taken a bad approach on it. Lansing has. It's pretty disappointing for the most part. A lot of these lounges, I think, and the 100 plant grows and the different things, the micros, why not make that part of the social equity for these cities and these are people usually that know marijuana. You can't really open up a lounge and make it work if you don't know marijuana, or even a lot of this, the smaller size businesses. So It's not a lot going on right now. I hopefully that a lot of the talk stops and some action gets done. I mean, I live in Meridian, East Lansing, Meridian Township, and we're supposed to be super liberal and progressive, but they still a lot of the politicians here think cannabis is bad still. We force them into it, and they don't care about, they look down upon people like me still for being a marijuana felon, and compared to the classic businessmen, some of the people we know in my community that are running big money operations. So right now, not much, just a lot of talk.
Explain for the listeners, thank you for all that, by the way, and let's talk about something a little bit more enjoyable. Explain some of the products you're discussing, the diamonds, what goes into that, and how does someone consume those? Are they consumed in traditional smoking methods? Device?
So the diamonds, it's basically you're dabbing them, whether it's your Puffco or your dab rig or whatever you're using, and they look like diamonds. There was one of the Fresh Coasters had a picture of one of them that came out. It was 23 grams all in one. It was giant. It was incredible. Obviously, we're doing one grammers, but so there's that, and there's super high THCA content, and when you combust that, boom.
So is it diamond decarboxylated or no?
Yeah.
It is? So you could eat it if you wanted to, right? I mean, people don't do that.
That's wasting a lot of money.
Usually you want to just put it on like a dab rig, right?
Right.
Or you mentioned a Puffco.
Yeah, that's
or
how
you
I
had
like
that
to do
one
it.
of those little guys.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
Puffco Peak. Yeah.
But it's a very euphoric feeling, is what I find from the THCA versus just the Delta 9. It's a different feel. It's really interesting.
Yep.
What is
It's really
the
interesting.
price point on a gram of diamonds?
What's that?
What's the price point on a gram of diamond?
So we that's one of the cool things. Just not to give a long-winded answer. There's a lack of diamonds and live resin carts in the market, but like I'm working with growers and processors and provisioning centers now that want the supply chain to work, and when the supply chain works, give that to the customer. So I'll be honest, the wholesale on my diamonds are like $30, which you should double up at 60 a gram, and everything on the market I see is like at retail usually 80 to 90 on the rec side, and then the live resin carts, medical and rec, I'm 23 and 25, and the other people out there that are doing it are 30 and 35, especially on the rec 35. So there's no need to right now. Like I'm trying to build long-lasting supply chain relationships, and when I talk to people, like remember, like we could charge more. We're not gonna. Do not charge the end user the normal price. Come in at the reasonable price you need to be at to run a retail business, and pay the excise tax and 280E, which you should be able to all do that at a 50% margin. Don't take advantage of this, because we're doing the right thing. So that's where we're at with that. And live resin carts, we have 6 strain specific diamonds and 6 strain specific live resin carts coming out, and they're all the same grower from True Cannabis. He took a couple crops of fresh frozen, and it just turned out incredible. But I didn't know, I mean, the demand for the live resin carts and the way it hit with the caregiver product not being able to transfer to rec. I mean, we're gonna have 20,000 live resin carts for rec, and I could get on the phone in 2 hours and sell them all. It's crazy, and to think you can do that and sell $500,000 worth of marijuana over the phone in 2 hours, and it's legal now, is crazy. So
it's crazy. Progress.
So those things, just they're available in carts as well. That's another way that you are.
No, that's different. It's like live resin, and so most the regular distillate carts, they'll have it'll be all distillate, and they'll probably infuse back terpenes that aren't even cannabis terpenes a lot of the times, and flavor them. That's why I might start a campaign called Chris Silva came up with it, but say no to hot dog water, and that's what they call that. But so this is it's got some distillate, but it's got the live resin, which is the full plant, the whole spectrum. and it's got everything in it, and you're getting the taste from the plant, and you're getting everything that you would want to do. Why wouldn't you not want to consume that instead of the hot dog water? I don't know. So that's what we're doing with that. And speaking of that, I heard Jamie talking about it when I came back on from the internet connection, and so in conjunction with Redemption Farmhouse in Grand Rapids, which our buddy Chris Silva from, you guys work with them, I legalize, and he's the GM over there, and then the botanical company, Jamie's company, and we're going to be doing a 10% discount on products for marijuana felons and 5% discounts for marijuana misdemeanors. And we're going to try to push for all the Redemption stores to do that, and maybe see what stores in the state, follow that as well. I did a few radio interviews on that today, and that should be announced tomorrow. So it's been a good week for marijuana criminals, I think, in Michigan.
Does that mean retired cops got to pay extra? Extra?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, you can.
There's some logic there for some reason. I don't know if the scale.
I'd pay it. I would honestly pay it.
Hit him with the Patrick Miles surcharge.
There you go.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you, Ryan, but I went and questioned Patrick Miles one evening down at the Anchor Bar in Detroit.
I saw the video.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
It was awesome.
I let him have it that night, I thought. Pretty good. But
that was early on, too.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was awesome.
Fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
What are you working right now? I forgot. He's got a government gig? I forgot. Is he?
No, he works at a law firm in Grand Rapids, one of the blue chipper firms, whatever you want to call them, and I don't know what he does, but
yeah, I thought does his name come up for a judge or something like that? It may have been. Maybe was it?
I don't know. That ought to be interesting. He's really him and Bill Schuette, the only politicians I'll badmouth. So,
and that's well deserved.
Yeah. Try to keep it cordial otherwise, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you got pre-rolls at those Redemption stores.
Yeah, so the 0.7, and they come in frosted black glass tubes with cork tops, and the 5-packs are 0.7, so you're going to have an 8. So traveling up to up north on the holidays or wherever, and grab a 5-pack of pre-rolls, and we used all real whole flower, which I'm not going to want to smoke a shake joint, so why would I sell it? And I'm going to piss Jamie off here by talking about this, but some of the pre-rolls are testing at 27, 26% THC, and so they're good. And we all know it's the whole plant, the terpenes, but just the way the market is now, that's what people are looking at. So yeah, it is what it is, but it's great flower regardless of what it's tested.
It happens to be great flower, which is the main thing. Yeah.
Yes.
You'll like it no matter what you're looking for with it. Whether it's high THC or the rest of it, it's there.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of pre-rolls is especially pleasing to us older cannabis users who know at some point in our lives, due to arthritis or other reasons, we may not be able to roll our own, but we'll still be able to smoke it. And it's nice to know that there are places that will be accommodating.
Yes. Thank you.
Ryan, can I ask you, were you referring to a ongoing debate or discussion you've had with Jamie that you can't resolve, so you've just agreed to disagree?
I don't disagree with it. I believe I believe it, but like I am cognitive of the reality of the market and what people want. Anytime I bring it up, Jamie loses it on me.
I don't lose it at all. There's a slow transition into kind of like people getting used to what's really important about how they assess the plan.
More importantly, there's some things that he gets hung up on that are very important to him that if you should go down,
should be important to everybody else.
It's the misleading nature of a THC number. A THC number really doesn't give you that.
I got all that. I just want to talk about Jamie's personality for a second. That's all. It's about Jamie, and there's a few things that he is very, very, topic orientated of it being a certain way. And if you dance over there, he'll let you know. And Ryan, what you did is you danced over there, and you couldn't help dance over there without Jamie's going to give me some shit. I got it. And I'm just saying that I feel like I've been dancing with him on that, on a couple of things. And I just wanted to share that I know what you're talking about,
Yes.
brother. Jamie's a tough one.
We somehow still make it through the day, but
course. It's something that you agree to disagree. Like, take it easy on me. Just come out, okay, right. But otherwise,
You usually learn something.
Of course, we're all trying to get educated by the one. That's all we can ask for, is just to try to learn and be the best we can. Live a wise life and stuff like that. Let's talk. You know what else, Jamie? You get in, and Rick. What do you guys say? What happened to Amanda and Jim? Did we lose Jim? Where's everybody?
I think we lost Jim.
I think Jim's gone, but I'm still here. I'm just listening. It was good Ryan was really interesting on, his discussion.
Ryan,
So I'm looking forward to trying out some of those things.
Yeah,
diamonds.
Me hopes for
You gotta try diamonds.
But I think that's what the takeaway here is. Everybody wants to try some of that, Ryan. And I imagine that you've set aside a couple bags.
I am very interested in the diamonds. I'll tell you that.
I'm excited for.
You guys, when now that when we get a chance to meet up together again to do the show, I do have a dab rig, and actually, Steve, you've got one too, don't you?
We still
a little dab rig.
Yeah, I think it's at the office.
Let's get some redemption for the PGT.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'd like to do that, Michael. That's one thing I'll be doing is testing products on Instagram Live and all that. So I'd love to.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, do some product testing live, and we can also bring in the processor or the grower and bring them in, and they can tell you how it was done while you're testing it. And I plan on doing a lot of fun stuff like that up in the lounge up north, and then in covert law office as well. And I'm gonna have a lot of fun.
You make sure you let me know when those covert law office days come in. All right.
Yep. No, it's gonna be fun. I figure there's not gonna be a lot of other, I guess like the companies and whatever you want to call me, the head of it, or I'm the only part of my company, so I guess I'm that and the bottom. But easy, Jamie.
When you're at the,
but like you're not gonna.
A lot of people were wondering. Glad you chose.
Yeah, you're not gonna see like SkyMet get on and test their dab on their corporate page and all that type of stuff. So
no, but they'll have their brand ambassador do it. They'll have a brand ambassador.
That action.
Not want to know when
black ash. It's just not going to do it for me.
When you're at the covert law firm, make sure you say hello to Saul Goodman there.
Yeah, I will. I love James McGilly.
Yep. You knew you were on this. Cool. You caught that. Very good.
Oh yeah. No, I thought his name was. I still have his name in my phone as James McGilligoody. I thought that was his name at first, but I had changed it. They're great. James is great. Nick Hawkins used to be there. He took a job down in Detroit. He's great to work with, and I love Old Town and Lansing, and I love that office. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of cool people come through, and you guys are always welcome. Anytime people come to Lansing, especially when this opens back up, there'll be cannabis consumed.
When the restaurants open back up, that's when we'll hit Lansing, because, man, love to eat in that town.
Yep. You got crew.
Yeah, they've got a lot of good restaurants there. I love that town.
We got it walking distance from where I'm at, so.
Yeah.
I went to school there.
Nice.
Good school town.
Cooley.
Well, when we talk about Ryan's story, Ryan really emphasizes some of the changes that have happened in the cannabis industry. We talked about telemedicine being forbidden, now magically being allowed. Curbside delivery used to give you a felony. Now it's something that all dispensaries are going to be able to do. Felons precluded from the system in the MMFLA, absolutely barred. And now social equity allows people to participate on a level that we couldn't see before. All around us are the benchmarks of change, really. All around us are the mile markers of progress. It's great to see. Great to be a part of at this point.
And we've only just begun.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it's been, we got named essential, and then but you still get that reminder. I just had been with Morgan Stanley for 14 years. They just called and closing my account on me because they saw the article in the Lansing State Journal said I might be laundering money. I'm okay. And then I had my an LLC bank account closed because I sold a property to a marijuana company entity. And I was like, and it had nothing to do with anything. So you still get that reminder.
Yeah.
You still just want to pay in cash.
Yeah.
I predict in less than 2 years that cannabis will be able to do full banking.
Yep, it's getting there.
It's difficult to see a pathway through in this session of Congress with as divisive as it is and being an election year. But I think you're right. Within the 2021 and 2022 session, maybe we'll get that.
I mean, I went out with the NCIA and it was fun. We lobbied, it was early last year, and that was it. We talked about the banking, and you'd get this senator from Wyoming, and he'd be like, why do I care about this? And the line was that I would say is like, well, I understand that, but what for your state's safety, what would you rather have your banking regulators concentrating on? Because right now they have to put all this time in on these state legal marijuana business and spend all this time, and they're complaining they don't have time to really spend the time researching like terrorism. So right now, a lot of their time's going to cannabis, and they're not even having the time dedicated to looking at real issues with banking, money laundering with terrorists, and that type of stuff. And they would agree to that. But anyways, yeah, we're almost there.
Well, the other half of the banking problem then would be the 280E problem, and maybe in 4 years we can get that fixed, and then everything would be great.
Yeah. I know. I talk about it for me because I've used cannabis and been an advocate. Even when I was in insurance, I smoked every day and came in smelling like it, and just told them that's what I'm doing. I don't give a shit, and they put up with it because I sold real well. But just look at the last 11 years. I look at it when I started getting really involved in 2009. Where are we going to be at in 11 years? That's kind of fun to think about as well. But 5 years, 11 years. Seems like our momentum, the ball's rolling so fast now compared to, how hard it was to push it and say, 12 and 13 and 14 when Shooty was really on the attack, and Bouchard and everybody else.
Left hand.
It's a tough time. I mean, we had at Big Daddy's, we had Oakland County Center, and we experienced several raids. And then we saw with Dryden, we saw the Oakland County Sheriff's Department leap outside of Oakland County to go into other jurisdictions in order to grab people that they were interested in. They did that in Macomb County, did it in Wayne County. Those are things that typically, we wouldn't have seen.
They did
initiated from other places.
Oakland County pulled somebody from Genesee County, and the only thing the guy did in Oakland County was he sold a bag in Oakland County, and from that they got a search warrant and searched his house in Genesee County, but they prosecuted him in Oakland County.
Yeah. It was crazy. I remember driving through Oakland County in 10 and 11 and 12 before I went to prison, and thinking, like, I would breathe a deep sigh of relief once I crossed the border and got to Detroit. It was pretty backwards. It was funny.
Legitimately, Ryan, when we launched the Michigan Association of Compassion Centers in 2010, a lot of people did not want to meet at Big Daddy's because we were in Oak Park in Oakland County. People wanted to meet in a different county. They wanted to meet at Third Coast. They wanted to meet in Lansing. Because folks in our industry did not want to tread those waters. Now, that's exactly the chilling effect that Jay Coop and all the rest of those folks wanted to have. That's exactly what Bouchard wanted to do. But it was self-preservation, man, right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm not wrong about this, am I?
No, you're right. You're right. It was, pretty much everyone involved in the MAC back then got raided or hit. It was, everyone was getting hit. Children getting taken away, people, and I remember I opened Cap City Caregivers, and, after Shooty got elected, it was just like, especially in 2011, it was like every day someone coming in, asking for help with legal advice. And I think we made Matt Newberg's career early on where we were referring everyone to him, but it was just like, it was nonstop. Like, people, I thought I was legal, and these are just regular folks, that we've all seen and talked to and heard about. But it was constant. It was just constant, and that really backfired on the prohibitionists, I believe, because you made all these, when they hit a good person, 100 people knew about it then, their family, everyone, and they're like, we thought, it just spread and spread and spread exponentially what they were doing to people and that weren't breaking the law and what it did to them.
Michael, let's bring it back to Oakland County and your conversation earlier and your experience. What we saw was after Bill Schuette had some negative experiences raiding cannabis places, he sort of slowed down. It took him a year or two. I mean, it was mid-12, but he didn't pursue it as aggressively in 13 and 14 on a statewide level as he had previously. What was your experience with Cooper during that time period, 13, 14? Should she sort of slow down like the Attorney General did on a statewide level, or was she still foot on the pedal, gas to go?
There was I don't think there's any state prosecutions in Oakland County where the Attorney General's office was prosecuting, in their courtroom. I mean, they do have, there are some divisions where like the child support payments, they prosecute that. Now that's an Attorney General gig where you might see some of those. But the criminal prosecution of marijuana was not ever done in Oakland County, did all of their own. And I don't know that there was ever a time that I could say that they did it any less than, any other. I think that during the 2012, 13, 14, 15 is when you saw the peak of the forfeiture, where the most monies were coming into the state, which is also somewhat reflected at the county level, what they're doing, their local task force, but it's not the state police. And so I don't think that they ever slowed down. I think that once they started getting away with it, they just dug in and started to eat there. That was going to be their thing for, but
you could really see where they evolved, though. Initially, they were like criminals, and they were trying to portray everyone they arrested or busted as someone who had broken some crime and done some heinous thing. And when that drum was a hollow beat, right, and no one was buying that anymore, they evolved their argument into forfeiture. And we heard all about how these places can't survive without all this money from these things. And they continue to try and justify maintaining the same level of harassment on the cannabis industry by using different benchmarks in order to justify that behavior.
I would agree with that, except I would say they never really moved away from the authority and power and ability to prosecute those cases. I mean, I agree. Like there was, it's bad. It's like gangsters. They got the alligators guarding the marijuana. That's how they started. Like, it's like cartels or whatever nonsense they're. That's how it started, right? Then it was, it's dangerous, and there's all this going on in the community.
The children.
I remember. Just thinking about it, I can't tell you the number of memories that I have, many of them terrible, and memories, thinking about it because they were just awful. But, I remember Jessica Cooper early saying something like, I find it hard to believe that, and it was like 44,000 patients at the time, that their doctors recommended that they smoke marijuana. Like, it just showed you the ignorance of what she was dealing with this in, not that there was, and then, and also their position that they took regarding the Carruthers case. That was all them. And the idea that after she said that, and I remember that as a quote of hers, and then came back with the only way you can ingest marijuana is through smoke. You can't make brownies. You can't do any other kind of methods of ingestion. It's only flour. It made no sense. She was so out of the, she really, really deserves to be
not be in office anymore, right? She really deserves to get bounced.
She is a honorable villain in the battle of cannabis reform in medical cannabis statewide. She was the instigator of the first raids. She was, brought all these issues to the Court of Appeals. Only her office has the money or cares, and have the judges that'll, rule in a way for them to get these terrible rulings that need to be appealed, right? And set the course of it. Who else is doing this? Literally, let's step back for a second and think about what other offices can you think about this? Of course, Kent County, they had all the overhauled shit up there. They were just constantly going after. There's a couple like Kent County cases that, that office ran them up the pole. But I can think of a couple others. But what other jurisdictions spit out? Is Alan still on the phone? What other jurisdictions spit out? That they were so aggressive that they wanted to make case law. You got Isabella, of course. With
Oakland County was the evil standard, man. You're right. They were the Dr. Evil of that industry.
you've got, I mean, you got Wyoming or wherever that was with
Darien.
Yeah.
Darien.
Southwest Michigan was a hotbed too, man. They were brutal.
Judge Lasada.
Which one?
Judge Lasada in Berrien County did not like medical marijuana or Section 8.
Lasada,
Lasata.
Well, I was going to say the Larry King case came out of a La Straka in Shiawassee. I know that. And they were an aggressive group out there. Whatever they were, Mantis. They were like, they were not Mantis. So that's, but,
Shield or Shiawassee, something like that.
Yeah. Can't think of it. But anyway, so
Livingston County was joy.
Multi-jurisdictional drug task force all have their own individual cute names for different regions. That's what we're referring to for those listeners that may not know the names we're trying to throw out here.
The Livingston's Lawn
narcotics team.
Some of them give some of them I don't think the animals would approve. Like Rhino is one up there. And you got
I know.
Anyways,
my personal favorite is the Western Wayne Narcotics. Those guys have a personal spot.
Where they are.
The hung like a lumberjack guys, right? Sure. Yeah.
Well, hey,
right.
I'll tell you something that's interesting about the interview with the judge was that she did not deny that culture not only exists, but it's real. Steve asked her that question. Hey, when I found that, we had a couple of kids dealing with these test forces, like nobody can, they just do whatever they want. They just run rampant all over everybody. She's like, yep, that's how it is.
It is.
That's what the reality is. Like, it's quite. I mean, I don't know. That's.
But Michael, look at all the graph though we've seen, and you've been able to chart this yourself. All the graph from these drug task force people, Monroe County, Wayne County, even the people that participated in the raids in Oakland County with me. That crazy female detective that got busted being super drunk on the road. Here. Ryan knows. I mean, these people are sometimes some of the most reprehensible representatives of the police.
Yeah, and I live around some of the people that were involved in mine, so but I keep my mouth shut on there. I keep their names out of my mouth because they
retribution's a bitch, and they'll do it.
Yeah, it's nice living. It's nice living easy.
Yeah.
Don't poke the bear.
I mean, look, there's a couple ways to look at this. One is that the perception is, most of these task forces are, separately funded or fund themselves because of forfeiture money, and they are either seen as, a good thing because they're bringing in money and taking money away from the bad guys, so they're giving the benefit of the doubt. Take it out of the drug dealer's pocket is always a concept that people can, and somehow people don't care. The other one is that, they're the ones that are on the front lines and dangerous and working, and they're risky. I mean, that's how I feel. They're like almost like honored, given an extra, And from Steve's told me, a lot of times these guys are get guys that get into the force, and it's like the military. They got rules and regulations. They have short hair. They got everywhere they got a leash on them, and they're like, okay, here you go. Go for 2 years. Go play around in the, grow your hair long, get some tattoos, get some earrings, get a bun and a beard.
Those guys.
Hang out at strip clubs.
Those guys party harder than rock stars.
Yeah. Usually end up divorced pretty quick. I know a lot of them around me. I went to school with.
It was a 3-year assignment, and those guys would put on weight. The guys who went in that unit from hanging out in the bars and drinking and partying, and they would put on 60, 70 pounds in a 3-year period. No doubt they had to get brand new uniforms when they came back. Those guys partied hard. Hardcore partiers.
All paid for by the taxpayers, right, Steve?
Probably, yeah.
All paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to go debrief after their rage,
Every tip that went into an exotic dancer's G-string came directly out of grandma's purse, right? Yes.
From what I understand, they liked going to those kinds of places.
Disturbing.
And they probably still do.
I was at Jimmy's Pub in East Lansing in 12, and I was meeting my old CEO and having a couple of drinks. We're talking about something, and the whole Tri-County narcotics squad just walks in, sits down at this table, and then they kind of look over and they start realizing I was there. That was a crazy one. They were getting hammered.
Oh, I can imagine.
Getting hammered, and they had all their dogs in the back of their trucks. I should have called the cops on them for driving drunk with animals, but I didn't.
Oh, you should have.
But it was like, yeah, that was a death stare. I got a few death stares that day.
Yeah, you don't want those guys armed, trained, angry with you, and then liquored up. That's a bad combo.
Oh, yeah, maybe a little coked up too.
See, it's okay for them to be out with their guns and while drinking heavily. They all do it.
That's absolutely true, Mr. Miller.
Yep. Then they get in their cars and they all drive home, and those narcotics guys are all driving government vehicles, drunk, regularly, guarantee it. We could set up our own sting on those guys.
Actually,
we could follow them out to the bar. They're all leaving hammered, and you leave and you call them in as you follow them. Citizens, they gotta send somebody.
Didn't they do that to Brooks Patterson? Didn't they?
I think so. We could do it to all the narcotics team cops, and they'd all have charges. Because they're all drunk.
Brooks Patterson was driven home by Oakland County sheriffs a number of times. I don't know that he was ever arrested, but he had a number of times where he shouldn't have been driving, and they took him home.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. And
then eventually they gave him a driver. Right. They just gave him a guy to drive him around.
Nowadays it's on video, so there's a little less discretion involved.
Unless they turn their cameras off.
Well, that happens. So,
Ryan, as far as Redemption Cannabis goes, do you have a website? How can people find out more about your launch? I know it's getting late in the day, and we've been stretching this program.
It's www.redemptioncanna.com, and at the bottom of it's got all the social media links, and plenty of stuff coming in the works, and just getting started. So
it's so awesome. I'm so happy for you. It's congratulations on everything. It's fantastic.
Thank you. It's fun to. This is literally, I feel like the job or career that I was made to do.
Yeah.
So.
Certainly, we talked about you on Planet Green Trees before you went away. This is kind of a round circle for Michael Komorn and Ryan Basore here.
It's like less than tomorrow's an hour and a half away or less, and it's the opening day. What do people expect? Is it curbside only at the Gage store that it'll happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's curbside only. I mean, there'll probably be lines of vehicles down the road. I'm expecting. They're still doing. I mean, their cookie store in Detroit's still doing wild numbers for medical. So Lansing loves cannabis, and we got a culture here of that, and they're popular here, and so it's going to be busy. It's medical only right now there. So, but if you reckon don't have a card, then there's going to be the Ann Arbor's Oma Medicine, Ann Arbor Wellness, Botanical Company up north.
Tomorrow? All that's happening tomorrow?
That's Saturday.
Okay, good.
Sorry, yeah. So hit that up, and then all the other Lansing stores are rec, and I'm in all of those. The ones that are my friends. I'm not in a couple. Like I'm not going to be in Sky Mint and a couple other ones, but
But if somebody was listening to the show and said, "I got to have some of that he was talking about, and I got it tomorrow," when is it open? They'd go to Lansing.
Lansing to Gage, you need a medical card. And it's just tomorrow, it's just prepackaged. Like the initial launch this weekend is just prepackaged flower and the 1 gram 8s and the 5-packs. And then we're about 10, 12 days away from the live resin carts, the diamonds hitting. And then there's sugar and shatter coming after that. And then I'm going to do a lot of cool things that I just to dream up and think about, plan a year out. We might have like special Christmas boxes with 8 different strains from the different growers, packet, just do a lot of different fun ideas that we get to do now. That's pretty hard to believe. So so expect a lot more. And I'm not going to talk about it on the air, but I've lucky to have connections throughout all this to be able to get some really elite genetics coming in and some really cool stuff. So that's exciting too, because I'm still a flower guy. I love flower. Take RSO every night and smoke flower all day. So
Ryan, I'm no expert on Christmas, but shouldn't it be 12 different genetics?
There you go. See,
Instead
you're
of
getting
8?
it fixed. Have you guys
Yeah.
ever seen like the 19 Crimes, like the augmented reality, the wine bottle?
No.
So it's where you put up to the bottle and there's an app, and then the it comes alive, and on the bottle it's a criminal, and he talks about what happened, why he went to jail. It's in the early 1900s. You know, I want to do stuff like that, but with the cannabis, you know, and scenes on boxes, and maybe do, you know, 100 boxes of that and collector's edition type stuff. And
yeah, that's really cool.
Got a lot of cool ideas with the lounge and brand launch parties and you know, all types of events. And, you know, have to get Planet Green Trees up there. And
absolutely.
You know, above the building, there's going to be five really cool lofts, and you know, obviously going to be cannabis friendly, and there's a lot of works up there, and you know, the surrounding areas, it's still pretty uptight. You know, Traverse City's not going to have lounges. Acme's not going to have lounges. You know, it's just the way it is. So, loving Kalkaska.
Still progress. It's good progress. All of it.
Final note before we part here. Alan Peisner did bring this up. It's kind of important. You maybe ask a question like, how did this legislation get passed? But of Section 396 of the code says, a person who intentionally conceals his or her identity by wearing a mask or other device covering his or her face for the purpose of facilitating the commission of a crime is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment. So that's on the books. It's already existed. And much of the requirements we're going to find ourselves are of wearing masks. And it's just, you know, like, so the question, like, this crime is so stupid, the one that's created. Like, how do you, I mean, obviously I don't know, how do you determine what they're going to do, you know, what their intentions are by the mask that they're wearing, unless they're standing in a bank with a gun or something like that, in which case you're at least worried about charging them with a misdemeanor wearing a mask. You're really worried about the other one. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is such a crazy, it's probably like inspired for, you know, some anti-Muslim reason or something to that effect. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying, but it kind of applies to and implicates all the social distancing rules and requirements. Jamie, what do you have to say about that? Are you worried about that?
Not worried about it.
Well, you know, the one thing I comment, you've seen these things on YouTube and on the news where you have store employees getting in an argument with a customer who refuses to wear a mask, and they don't let the person in the store. They had one with this guy who was kicked out of Costco the other day. And so his response could have been, it's against the law to wear a mask in Michigan, and quote this law, which is MCL 750, Section 396, and it makes it a misdemeanor to wear a mask.
But it says only in the commission of a felony, right? You can wear a mask any damn place you want.
Facilitating a crime.
Not everything's a felony.
Crime. Yeah, a crime. So you can wear a mask any damn place you want.
Well, how about this?
There is a statute against wearing masks, I'm certain, except for designated couple days of a year, one being Halloween.
Listen, that's what
used to be on the books if it's not still.
We're saying it's on the books. How about this? What if you're wearing the mask wrong? So you're not following the rules because it's a little bit off, and then therefore you're committing a crime because it's not a crime, violating an order. Maybe it's a violation. I don't know. And now you could be. It could
sounds like it's something Jessica Cooper would try.
Right.
It sounds like a minutia.
Right.
You get cited for wearing the mask wrong. Is that what you're saying, Michael?
Well,
not locking the door.
Not locking the door. Now it's a crime. Now you're a felon.
And you're using a mask to commit a crime, which is they're not wearing it properly. That kind of shit could happen.
So the crime is with the mask itself.
Right. That's what I'm saying. This is crazy. It's stupid. It could happen. I could see that. You know. I don't know. This is just. I mean, who created this in the first place?
When it happens, we'll worry about it.
The episode, I'm sure.
That seems like such a tiny, itty bitty, witty possibility that not even going to be worthy of.
There's so many laws that are in the book that are like this that just are left open to
ridiculous
of use of whenever someone could be. I mean, what would be a situation that somebody could be? Why is this in the book? Like, think about it. Because you know what I mean? Because like if it's got a mask. What is the intention of wearing a mask at the time? I like Batman.
It's been the law since 1931.
What?
It became the law in 1931 in Michigan.
There's a lot of laws that are like this.
Yeah.
Because they probably scared people into thinking they needed these laws.
Yeah.
And here we are. Finally.
Masked train robbers. They're trying to stop train robbers with bandanas across there, holding up the stagecoach in 1930.
I was in the bank the other day, and the whole line of people in the bank wearing masks.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a picture, but I didn't want everybody to think I was weird. But I did say something. I did say out aloud. I said, boy, 2 months ago, if you seen all these people in a bank with a mask, you'd get worried.
I mean,
of course.
For those,
it's kind of
the guy not wearing a mask.
For those bank robbers at home, not to suggest your odds of being not identified or picked out of a crowd because you're wearing a mask in a bank. Not saying that, but it just happens to be weird times out there. I mean, look at a bank. Everyone's got a mask on. Like, someone walks in with a mask, somebody like hit the alarm button, and
See, I recognize him as a distinctive forehead profile. Right, exactly. I see.
It's a reality. Like their whole security thing is kind of, challenge, I guess. All right, so
just grow a beard instead.
Wow. All right, it's late, man.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Telemedicine.
What?
20 minutes on telemedicine.
How? What are you kidding?
Yeah, I think we're good on telemedicine. We're good to go. We're rocking it out.
I like it.
Thanks to Laura.
Get in touch with Amanda at an elevation station, and she will telemed you.
She will get you certified, and
yes,
if you're in need of a caregiver,
that's correct. We offer doctor appointments a couple times a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays between noon and 4, and or telemedicine as it fits the patient best. And yes, we do offer caregiver matching services. So if you're a caregiver looking to fill your patient load, we've got you.
Are you still driving, by the way? And before you're showing off at your plants, you're driving?
No, now I walked. Now I'm back on my phone. I switched. I was at the office. Now I'm back at the house. So I'm switching around. You guys get different backgrounds and all this other stuff.
Showing off your Zoom skills, I get it.
But I still have all my plants in the back. So, they kind of go wherever I go.
You have love will travel, has been said before.
That's right.
It'll probably be a future career, Michael, as Zoom specialist. Comes in and he sets up everybody for the meetings at the office. Zoom specialist. You're calling it.
It's weird times out there, and a lot of conspiracy theories that are false and fraudulent. But the hydrochloroquine and our leadership of insanity that's taking place. But
I was texting with my band members earlier this evening, and they both claim that COVID-19 is a lie. Is that going around now?
How about this? How about that? The Zoom is owned by a Chinese company. And they're collecting everybody's everything right now. They are. It is. It's okay. I think it is. I think it's
it could be. Yeah, they're right in. Chinese government.
Make a couple conspiracies.
That's distressing.
It also could have been caused by the 5G network, which is running rampant. You know about that?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's slowed down.
I've heard a few things about that, too. We're all doomed. No worries. We're just accept it.
Right.
But the problem I have with that, if you think about it scientifically, is if you're getting those 5G rays into your body, that should be killing virus, not causing it, in my opinion.
That's right. In fact, one of the things that I think is an effective method, in addition to Clorox and sun, is to take your phone and put it into your mouth. Gee, and listen. So it gets into your body. Like, that's a good thing. Like that, just try it. What do you have to lose? Just try it. Just try it.
Also, if you stand in front of your microwave every time you use it, you might get some residual radiation, can kill virus.
Yes, but the secondary side effects of all that electromagnetic radiation can have bad effects on the person. Like, look what happened to Saul's brother, Chuck McGill.
I mean, are you guys worried? They announced that whole Obamagate thing. We should be concerned that maybe the end of Obama's presidency. It could be over now. Do you think?
I have a feeling he's coming back. What if Joe Biden selects Barack Obama as his running mate?
He's not.
And that dies. What happens then?
That would throw everybody for a loop.
No, if he were to die, Obama would become president, and that would defeat the 23rd Amendment.
No, because it's only consecutive. They can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms as president. You can become president again. Yes, you can.
What, Teddy Roosevelt?
Yes, we can.
They'd have to amend. No, there's an amendment. They'd have to repeal the something amendment in order so someone could go on more. But we could probably, how about some of the tweeting that goes on? Does anyone,
same?
Yeah, like I'm just saying, like the self-awareness,
God.
but lack of. I mean,
it's horrible.
Generally speaking, it's just
it's an embarrassment.
A tweet is something Barbara Walters used to give her dog. Okay, I mean now we're talking about because I'm working on some jokes. I'm working them out here. Work with me a little bit. Doing jokes right now.
Late night. Good stuff. So before we sign off, I want to say that we are excited at Botanical Company to have the redemption products.
That's really cool.
And looking forward to that. We will, when we all meet together.
Congratulations to both.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. It's so awesome.
No one's talking about Midland, which is a tragedy, and I don't mean to blow this bubble up, but what about all the chemicals that surround that stuff from all the...
Oh, it could be nasty.
To you guys. Oh my gosh. Michael was reading that Dow chemical.
I'm just saying, like if that surrounding area had some chemicals because it's a town that is in the chemical industry, just some.
Didn't it hit the waste, their treatment pools, whatever, they're flooded and yeah.
And what is it?
So it's bringing up all these chemicals from like 8 years ago that have sunken into the earth, and now they're so saturated. All this stuff's going to come up.
Oh, it's going to be ugly.
But it affects
ugly.
It affects all the water in Michigan, right? It's just like it's going to all find its way.
It's probably already in Lake Huron by now.
There's already so many notices I see at the supposedly fresh waters of bodies of water, where it says, "Do not eat the fish." Like, I mean, do you really want to even dip your toes in there if you can't eat the fish? I don't know. But now, I mean, we're dealing with a whole different monster because all these things that have been buried deep, all these chemicals, as we know, they've already been ruining the waterways in a massive way. And, it seems like after we were talking to a couple people, and it seems like there's a gentleman that it's individually owned, and he had been cited several times to correct the dam, fix the dam. There was a $16 million contract that they were going to they were buying it from him so that it could be managed properly, and they were about to close the deal, except for he had to do one more repair before the deal closed. $16 million. He did not do the repair. And as we know, the dam broke. The
Yeah, it's
dam
intense.
broke.
It's intense. Those pictures are wild with the water levels all the way to the top of the stop signs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, there were a couple of houses that completely got washed away.
I lived up there for a few months while I was in the police academy in Midland. And I could see how they could have
with Hightower.
It's like a lower set town, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that, Jamie? What was that? What was
with
that?
Hightower.
Tower and Mahoney.
Yeah, police academy. Sneak out at night.
Those are some good movies. I like when Bobcat Goldthwait joined up. He was a good one.
It's funny.
Those are good movies. They really are.
I like that. I like that there was some threats of not giving aid because of political reasons. I like when those things are intertwined and professionalism prevails.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see someone in the background here running some PG3 microphone. Wow, Amanda, they teased it a little bit. They teased the segment of Amanda reporting from Midland. I saw.
Are we off the air now?
We're still going. I don't think
Yeah.
We're still going. Okay.
Oh yeah, we did, but I think we can put out like a little segment about that later or something. But yeah, we got some great stuff up there and talked to a lot of people that had been affected by all of this stuff, and they unfortunately the general consensus that we've talked to probably about 3-4 people, different residents, and although FEMA is going to provide some assistance, but insurance will not cover these things. And the reason why is because I guess there has something to do with it being like their homeowners insurance or whatnot. It has to be like a broken pipe or some act of nature, act of God.
You got to get flood insurance, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to get a separate rider for the flood.
Well, here's the deal. There were a couple of people saying that yes, that the flood stuff is true, but it's for broken pipes and things like that happen in your house, not when the dam breaks and takes everything that you own.
And the idea that
right. Regular home insurance normally would do that, but because the flood caused it, they're not. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm hearing from the residents. Yes.
Well,
this is just there are no words.
That liability
I have for what I'm seeing here
has to be covered by the taxpayers separately. Like if I mean, they're already paying taxes. That should be managed properly. I mean, there's some.
There was an individual that owned the dam. It was not owned by like a governmental agency or anything. That's the part of the problem. So it's like he
just completely gone.
I guess did not keep it up and make the repairs.
And he's going to get sued.
And
yeah, but that's irrelevant.
Yes.
It's almost irrelevant.
Absolutely.
Kind of money that could pay for this. Whatever. What's the guy's
this guy's not going to pay for all this.
Yeah,
nobody's going to pay for it. I don't know how it's all going to pan out, but these folks seem to think they're not going to get any assistance because of the way that it happened, because he owned it. He owns the dam.
I would say this is
now.
I think. Listen, I just pointed this out. We as we look at the emergency situation we've been in and look to our leaders and how they've performed, I think and everyone's going to have their own view of what that and whatnot. But this is not a time where we just want to look to like leadership to try to fix the problem that's occurred here. I think it's fair to say like what leadership failed to not prevent this from happening, right? This whole description here has been that they knew it was going to happen. It was, been cited. It was about to happen. They were, Amanda, you said the stories that they were waiting on him to do something. Well, what is that? I mean, this is like an emergency that they didn't foresee happening.
Exactly. They had been slapping him with with all kinds of different complaints and things like that, and he was sometimes not showing up to court, and just apparently it's like a real thing that has been a problem, and the residents knew that this dam was going to break. They just did not know when it was going to break, and they were hoping that he was going to follow through and secure that peace, but he didn't.
You know what those
and so now obviously
they need those drug.
What's that?
They need these drug task force officers on that case, right? Because they'll go in a door because someone's got a plant, right? But there's about the death, the whole destruction and terror, who knows what else, and they're got them citing tickets.
It's horrible.
Like, you tell me they can't go in and take over that problem as a public health concern? I mean, that's like a leadership. I mean, that is an example of every bit of our resources put in the wrong spot right there. I don't care whatever arrest was ever made. I don't care whatever person was put away. That is a government failure at the greatest level. Jamie, are you objecting to me?
I'm not objecting. I'm just getting very tired. It's 11:10. Show should come to.
Calling it. Call it, Jamie. Way to call it. Good call.
Good call, Jamie.
Calling it. Good call.
Appreciate Ryan being on here, and I liked hearing from Jerry McDonald tonight too. It was a win. We could use that kind of attitude as another good prosecutor, and looking forward to having Ryan's products in this weekend.
Yeah.
It was a good show, you guys.
Gives me hope for Esteban's.
Really good show. Really good show.
Really good show. I'll see you next week. Well, most of you I'll see sooner than that, but you know what I'm saying.
10 or 11.
See the viewers next week.
I've never seen anything like this. This is a dark moment for the justice.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Welcome back. I was digging those tunes. I was jamming. Really, if I wore underwear, I would throw them on stage, but I don't wear any underwear. We'll come back to that. But anyway, I had someone really awesome to introduce you guys to. He is basically going to be the first ever virtual dancing and, the tunes coming out with the cannabis plants. Tom Wall is going to be jamming out with his plans, and this is going to be something you do not want to miss. Tom?
How's it going? So, hopefully, can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, you guys can hear me good? Okay. So, what I'll do is I'll just start off giving a little bit of an explanation on the technology that I'm going to use to perform this. But this device takes two electrodes, one that hooks up to the leaf of the plant, and then one that hooks up to the root. And the one that hooks up to the root looks just like a spike like that, and it goes down the roots. And through the two, what happens is it can register the electromagnetic fluctuations between the two, and it basically makes a wave pattern. Through that wave pattern, assign musical notes per size of the wave, allowing it to generate music. But the interesting thing about it is that when I got into this, and I've done it with all sorts of different types of plants, but that they not only can play music, but they can play music with you, and they seem to kind of respond to what you do. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I plan on obviously doing this in the diag, I was kind of really going to be surprised to see how it would react with that many people around. But this particular variety here is called Cosmic Splooge, and the name of our band, Cosmic Knot, came out of trying to name a cannabis strain a long time ago. And it's the idea of looking for a particular flavor that's very rare. It's kind of like along the lines of Acapulco Gold and the Colombian Gold. You can't find it very often anymore. But this is the culmination of a lot of years of searching, and it's still not quite there, but we're really happy to have this. So this is the Cosmic Splooge plant that really started the whole thing in the first place. But I think we should have it all hooked up now. So let me turn up the volume and allow you guys to hear what it sounds like by itself, and then I'll chime in with it, and we'll try and do a duet. And then I'll let it back to you guys because I know we're trying to keep things rolling. So without further ado, this is the first time a cannabis plant has made music that I know of on any videos, let alone on a virtual form and live facet. So this is really cool. And the fact that this is for Hash Bash is even cooler. 50 years ago, people were going to prison for this. And now we get to have a plant play for everybody. So here we go. hope that translated well. The type of music has been called organoleptic music, meaning organoleptic is evaluating with the senses, and then flora meaning plants. So plants evaluate with the senses, creating music. So organoleptic music, it's a new variety that just kind of came to life in the recent times, and I've been lucky enough to somehow stumble across it and figure out how to play music with plants, and they seem to play very beautifully along with you. They kind of follow you. It's really strange. But I really appreciate all you guys getting together, and once again putting this on and making this happen still and persevering through all the madness. Really cool that you guys were able to do this, and thanks for everything. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to let you guys keep on rolling because I know you got a lot to do still. So there's a bunch of amazing musical acts still coming up. So I think Nick Satel is up on deck right now. And then we got a few other artists after that are going to be really awesome as well. So to hang out, chill out, and have a good time listening to some amazing music. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Tom.
That was pretty cool, man. So that was the first. It was captured here.
Will work. Everybody take a photo. Social media is where this is at. Next year, this should be 10 times as big. Post your photo. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.